Welcome, everyone. A lot has happened since we last met. Great to see you all.
Just waiting for the webcasting. So just
A lot's happened since we last met, and it's great to see you all again. So the meeting is being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. The recording of the meeting will remain online for 4 years, and if you are present in the chamber, you are consenting to appearing in the recording and broadcast, which may also be used for training purposes. Anyone else recording or filming from within the room must not obstruct the view of the councillors, officers, the public and press, and that flash photography must not be used unless it has been agreed beforehand. I would ask that we are respectful to one another in debate during the course of this meeting. I would also like to remind fellow councillors to have regard for the 7 principles of public life, also referred to as the Nolan principles, which are also set out in the Council's adopted Code of Conduct. And these are: 1, selflessness; 2, integrity; 3, objectivity; 4, accountability; 5, openness; 6, honesty; and 7, leadership. So we begin with any apologies received. I have received apologies from Councillor Castle and Sims, and I believe... Can I give apologies for Councillor Laura Brooker, please? Cindy, thank you. Councillor Stephanie Chambers. Apologies received from Councillor Laura Brooker. Any other apologies? Oh, yes.
yes, Madam Joshua Taylor.
Thank you. Made a note of that. Thank you so much, Councillor Wilson. So we move on now to minutes. To approve as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of May 2024. Yes, Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before we go to approve, I've just got a question, if that's possible, with the minutes, before I can approve them on behalf of the independents, if that's possible. It's with regards to page 16, item 7.13. I'd just like to clarify if these are the correct minutes, and if Councillor Hilton did say this, or if it's a typo. 7.13, the leader also advised that he intended to appoint Councillor Bowkett as Cabinet Support Member to assist with the review of Gloucestershire Airport and support other Cabinet members to increase the commercial income of the Council and other special projects. So I just want to confirm that Councillor Hilton did advise that it was Ashley Bowkett was a special advisory person in the meeting on the 20th of the 5th, 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers.
To clarify, Councillor Hilton did say Ashley Bowkett's name in the special advisory position.
No one's disputing the minutes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks for clarifying that. Thank you.
Thank you. No problem. Are we happy to accept the minutes then? Everyone happy with that? Everyone will say aye. Thank you so much. Thank you. So we move on now to declarations of interest. Are there any? Oh, yes. Councillor Bowkett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to declare an interest regarding item 10 on the agenda. And I advise this council that I will leave the room during any discussion and vote on this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowkett. Are there any other declarations of interest? No. Okay, thank you very much. So we move on now to call over. I will read out the other agenda items that are available to be reserved for discussion this evening. If you wish to reserve an item for discussion, please indicate by raising your hand. Item 9, Treasury Management Year-End Annual Report 2023. Thank you, Councillor Chambers. To 24. Item 10, Report of the Independent Remuneration Panel. Thank you. I see several hands there. Item 11, Designation of Monitoring Officer. Yes, thank you, Councillor Chambers, and definitely a hand raised there. And item 12, Urgent Decision reported to Council, and Councillor Chambers again. So all items are reserved for discussion. Therefore, we will move on to the next agenda item. So now we move on to public question time. Questions from members of the public and responses from Cabinet members have been published and circulated in advance. Those questions and answers will be taken as read. I will now invite those who submitted questions to ask one related supplementary question. I would ask members of the public to proceed directly to the question, which will be answered without discussion, after which members of the public should return to their seat, unless they have more than one question on the schedule. We have 15 minutes to get through as many supplementary questions as possible. Mr. Davies isn't present, so we'll go straight to Mr. Mahoney, please. Would you like to go across? Thank you.
6:42.
If you press the button there. Thank you.
Hello. So my first question is about the Fix My Street app. I always thought that Fix My Street was an app that got a simple app that people would request a repair or something and it would get sent to the relevant department rather than someone getting an email back saying refer to Gloucester City Homes. I've read the question, the answer to my question. It says obviously they don't divulge people's personal information. Well, you have to give permission to use your personal information on that app.
So could you clarify your question?
So my question is, why can't, when people report a problem on Fix My Street, why can't it be diverted to the relevant departments, rather like Gloucester City Homes? Obviously, I know Gloucester City has nothing to do with the council, but...
Thank you, Mr. Mahoney. Councillor Wilson, would you like to respond, please? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the question. Fix My Street, it's good, but it's not perfect. The issue, I don't know the exact nature of the issue that you reported on Fix My Street, but I understand the answer to the question is GDPR issues. We have to be careful and we have to make sure we stay within the law as regards sharing personal information. If not, the Information Commissioner will be down on us like a ton of bricks. If you don't mind sharing the exact details of the query, I could have a look at it and see if there's some way that we could rework the system in future. But as things stand, we will have to be careful about how we use people's information. In your case, it might have been fine, but in somebody else, it might have been more personal information they didn't realise was being shared. So I don't know. I would need more details. But if you would like to speak to me later on, I can have a look at that for you.
Mr. Mahoney, do you have a second question? Okay, thank you.
Yes, I do, yeah. So my second question is regarding to the green, the recycling boxes. The green recycling boxes tend to get blown around in the wind, causing an awful lot of mess. DEFRA has now said that recycling can be mixed. So would it be acceptable to have one bin that wouldn't get blown away in the streets, causing a lot of mess and just create I've driven along the road and I've green bins literally blown out in front of my car. So I just thought consolidating it into one bin would probably be a better way.
Thank you, Mr Mahoney. I'll ask Councillor Field if he would like to respond to your question. Thank you, Councillor Field.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the question. Can I just clarify that you don't have a supplementary for question 3? You're moving on to question 4 because it felt like.
I've got.
We'll come back. Fine. Yeah, no problem. So with regard to the green bin and the recycling bins, this is something that will be debated later on this evening. But obviously, as you can see from my answer, it's not, unfortunately, as simple or straightforward or cost-effective to just say we'll go to a green bin for everything. It would cost an awful lot of money, and it would involve an awful lot of money behind the scenes to replace what we already have. So that's something that certainly we intend to review as we go forward, but it's not something we can commit to right now.
Thank you, Councillor Field. Mr Mahoney, do you have a third question for us this evening? Okay, thank you very much indeed for your time and your questions.
Can I just say, yeah, I do have another question. I just read it on here, sorry, I got it. So I've had people come to me who unknowingly dropped litter in the streets, yet got fined for dropping that litter when they didn't know they dropped it. I've noticed dustmen going around the streets, they drop litter, they don't pick it up. Is the CPOs on a commission for fining people?
Thank you, Mr Mahoney. I think that's Councillor Field again, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the question. As far as I know, the CPOs just do their job, and the enforcement officers that we have in the city centre will, there has to be obviously some practicality to it. You're not going to, hopefully, I wouldn't think they would fine somebody for something falling out of their pocket. But of course, in that instance, someone surely would say to them, excuse me, I think you've dropped that, or put it in a bin. And what we're talking about here in your question, I think, is deliberate littering. And that's obviously something we would definitely fine for. The operatives who work for Ubico, who are collecting the waste and recycling, they do a very hard job at great speed. It's very physically demanding. We would hope that the dropping of litter inadvertently is kept to a bare minimum. But we do monitor standards. I meet with Ubico, and I will be meeting with Ubico. I will actually be going out with the waste and recycling manager on a KPI audit and following the crews round and checking they're doing their job and checking that everything's put back neatly. They do have a standard, which you'll have noticed, where they have to put the recycling bins inside each other, and they have to put the blue bag and then the food waste bin on top of it. And it has to be all neat. So they are working at speed. It's a physically demanding job, and they're doing the very best they can. But obviously, we would want to hear about any drop in standards immediately.
Thank you, Mr Mahoney. Thank you for your questions.
Mr Redgewell.
Do sit down. And
Mr Redgewell next.
Mr Redgewell next, please. Thank you, Councillor Chambers.
Thank you very much. So, Chair, in answer to the first question, I'm pleased with the progress, or rather, the Chief Executive met my colleagues as well this afternoon at the Community Rail Partnership. But the one thing that's still of concern to us is I don't know whether members have had a look trying to get from the city centre to the railway station. With the amount of works going on, you cannot walk through the bus station anymore. You have to go to Asda now to get to the train station. I wonder if this could be looked at as soon as possible between the authorities and the leader of the council, possibly going to have a look himself. We need to find quicker walking routes, better signage and wayfinding. It takes me in my wheelchair, and I'm not knocking the signage, but it's taking me in my wheelchair from the train platform to the bus station about 15, 17 minutes. It used to take me 5. So I wonder if this can be, because I'm told now this could be going on till September, November, between the various interested parties, First Great Western Railway, Gloucestershire County Council, the city. I know the LEP's no longer there. Transfer for Wales, Stagecoach, go ahead, all the various parties involved in the interchange. And I wondered why, with the hotel not occupied and very few residents in the area, why with the Forum and the rail station, why we couldn't have some evening working, and why the contractor has to block the main way between the bus station and the railway station, so you go out in a huge circle. Has any of this really been looked at from a point of view of passengers? And I appreciate it's a new administration, but I just wonder if it could be looked at.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr Redgewell. Councillor Wilson to respond, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Redgewell, for that supplementary. I'm very sorry to hear that. The trek from the hub to Asda is far too. It's almost beggars belief. It looks like there's something of some urgency has to be looked at here. So I'll get that looked at as a matter of urgency and see if there's something we can do. Because we should be looking after those kind of pedestrian routes. I don't know the full story because I haven't seen it, but I can promise you that we will look at that, with, pretty much as soon as we can, which will be tomorrow maybe. Okay.
So my second supplementary is yesterday in Parliament, the King's speech talked about a devolution bill for England. So the question we're really asking is, what is happening about devolution in Gloucester City Council, working with partners in the city region, Tewkesbury and Cheltenham, but also with the rest of Gloucestershire and Western Gateway, to come up with a devolution deal that brings in more money and more resources for the city region? And I wondered whether there's any work going on at present, or whether we can be shared with any work it might be happening between the various districts in Gloucestershire and the county, and partnerships like Western Gateway, to see if we make sure we pick up the maximum amount of money from the government for Gloucester and the city region.
Thank you, Mr Redgewell. I'll ask the Leader of the Council, Councillor Hilton, to respond. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the Queen's speech was yesterday. I haven't even had time. King's speech. Sorry, did I say the Queen? There, I got so used to it. The King's speech was yesterday. I haven't even had time to read it. I've just seen the headlines on the BBC. Before the election, we did agree that the Leader of the Council at the time would sign agreement with the County Council on its current bid for devolution. I mean, the important thing is not just about money. It's not about grabbing the most amount of money if in the end powers are taken away from you because you've had that money. The important thing is a devolution deal should be transferring powers from Westminster to local government, to the County Council, and retaining powers at the district council level, and down, hopefully, additional powers to the City Council. So we're assessing the opportunities and threats that the King's speech will provide us. And we'll be talking to the MPs that represent the City of Gloucester. But we've now got 2 of them. We'll also be talking to other councils in Gloucestershire. And we'll be talking to through the District Council Network and the Local Government Association. But it was yesterday. Give everybody time to assess and give the ministers time to advise us in more detail on what they're planning. We haven't had that information yet.
Thank you, Councillor Hilton. Thank you, Mr Redgewell. And I think that concludes public question time. Thank you. So moving on now. Petitions and deputations. We've not been notified of any. Oh, no. Don't think we've been notified of any, Councillor Chambers.
Well, thank you. If I could notify the council, then the next full council, I've got 2 petitions to issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. That's noted. So we move on now to announcements.
All right, carry on.
Okay. Well, firstly, on behalf of the city, I would like to give heartfelt thanks to our outgoing and long-serving MP, Richard Graham, and to welcome our new MP, Alex McIntyre, extending that welcome on behalf of Longlevens and Elmbridge wards to Cameron Thomas, the new MP for Tewkesbury. And I wish them all well for the future. I would also like to express our gratitude to John and the whole Democratic and Electoral Services team for their exemplary efforts throughout both elections. Secondly, I have been asked by the St Anne's Society of Gloucester to highlight the Special Relief Fund for Jamaica following the devastating effects of Hurricane Beryl. Details of this fund can be found by contacting Carol McGann of the St Anne's Society, Gloucester. Thank you very much. So now I hand over to Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'm going to take the opportunity to also endorse your thanks for the previous Member of Parliament, Richard Graham, who served this city for 14 years in Parliament and also worked closely with the local council. Before the elections the vote was counted, I had a chat with the Managing Director and we agreed that a letter of congratulations would go to both the Members of Parliament that would represent the City of Gloucester. We sent that off, I think on the Monday just after the elections were declared, to Cameron Thomas, the new Member of Parliament for Tewkesbury, who covers Longlevens and Elmbridge, and also to Alex McIntyre, that covers the majority of the City of Gloucester. And we've had a positive response back from both of them, and we're now in the process of setting up the first meetings with them. There will be issues which quite clearly are more focused on the City MP, but there's also issues when you look at the joint core strategy and other things where the Member of Parliament for Tewkesbury will be important in conversations we might have. The other decision, the big decision I've made, Madam Mayor, this week, is one of the joys of being leader of the council, is to make a decision that we're scrapping the brass nameplates that the previous cabinet member had. I've got one here with Councillor Andy Lewis on it. We thought it would be easier for anybody viewing our debate on the screen, on the webcast, to see the nameplates in front of them that are easy to read. And we're also saving this council a bit of money by not going ahead with these brass nameplates. But I understand the former cabinet members would then take them home. So I'm going to give this one to Andy Lewis. That's complete. That's my announcements over.
Thank you, Councillor Hilton. So now, members of the Cabinet. Councillor Field, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm very pleased to announce that Gloucester Park has recently received the prestigious Green Flag Award, and that is the highest accolade a park can have. And it's really great because it adds another park to our 3 that we already had. So we've now got 4 parks with the Green Flag status in Gloucester. And I only hope that we can keep it that way. The judges remarked on the lighting and improvements in signage and how all the partners work really well together. It's also remarked on the safety aspect, particularly for female park users. And this was an achievement by council officers, our street care partners, volunteers and other partners. And it's a real team effort. And I'd like to thank the officers concerned for all their hard work, and I hope we can keep this award for many, many years to come. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Field. Wonderful news. So now, are there any other members of the Cabinet would like to make any announcements? Okay. Chairs of committees? No? Okay, over to Head of Paid Service.
None from me, thank you.
Oh, and none from Mr McGuinty. So we will move on now to members' question time. Questions from members and responses from Cabinet members have been published and circulated in advance. Those questions and answers will be taken as read. Supplementary questions should be put and answered without discussion, noting that we have 45 minutes to get through as many supplementary questions as possible. Thank you.
start with Councillor Stephanie.
So, question 1 from Councillor Stephanie Chambers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have one supplementary for this one. And the question is, thank you for confirming that there'll be no conflict in relation to the Home Seeker Plus policy. However, is there anything else in your role, particularly with the Gloucestershire Housing Partnership, which covers all the districts, that could be a conflict between your role at Tewkesbury and your role as Cabinet Member here? Thank you.
Thank you. I did change roles on the 1st of May. So my current job is the Housing Strategy and Enabling Officer. I do get involved in the joint core strategy for Tewkesbury Borough, but as part of my cabinet role, that sits under planning, which is outside of me.
Councillor Stephanie James.
Councillor Stephanie Chambers, do you have a second supplementary question, please?
Yes, thank you. And this is for the Cabinet Member for the Environment. Nass Lane is a particularly difficult area where it sits part in Gloucester and part in Stroud, which a lot of other areas in Quedgley do, and I'm sure other people have that same issue, that where they border other districts. Do you know when Ubico will start introducing the synergies that they keep talking about? Because when I've reported, the railway bridge is the dividing line, and there may be a fly tip one side and a fly tip other side, and nobody can go and pick that up. It's 2 separate teams have to go and pick up those fly tips. So do you know when those synergies might start to be introduced?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the question. I do meet regularly with Ubico. Obviously, I've not met with them many times yet, but there will be regular meetings throughout my time as Cabinet Member, and this is something that we will obviously look at. One of the benefits of us being shareholders in a joint enterprise like this is that we can talk about these synergies, such as you mentioned, and that's something that I'd be very happy to take forward to you, Ubico, and report back to you if you like.
The next question, question 3, is from Councillor Pullen, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just in case people are wondering, I'm deaf in one ear, and I didn't want to miss the excitement, the debate and the discussion from the council meeting. So I'm well tuned in and I can hear everything, hopefully.
We'll just pause for a moment.
May I suggest, Madam Mayor, that we can make it a bit more interesting so people don't fall asleep? Thank you.
Right. So we're going to ask Councillor Pullen, please, to ask his question again. Thank you so much, Councillor Pullen. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My first question is to the Leader of the Council, and it is about the proposed sale of Gloucestershire Airport. Thank you for the answer. If I could remind the Leader that himself, myself and the former Leader of the Council, Richard Cook, attended a meeting at Gloucestershire Airport earlier on this year with a briefing about issues at the airport, which was very helpful and very informative. Obviously, it's confidential, so I won't share with you the detail of discussion. At the meeting, Councillor expressed his view that the airport should remain under council ownership, something that he stated before. Clearly, now he's reconsidering his position. Has he changed his view? Is this somewhat of a U-turn in terms of his view on the airport? Could the Leader give us an indication, please, because this issue is dragging on and we need to know about the future of the airport. Could you please tell us when a decision will be reached? And could you please tell us that whatever decision is reached, the best interests of businesses, the economy and industries related to the airport are that which will inform his decision?
Thank you, Councillor Pullen. Councillor Hilton.
Thank you, Terry. When I look at the Lib Dem manifesto, it says we on the airport, and I did give a comment to scrutiny the other night. We continue to support Gloucestershire Airport to remain an important aviation high-tech business hub that provides for locally based skilled employment. You will also remember before the elections, we made it clear that we didn't want any decision to be made until after the elections on whether or not the airport was going to be sold. And since the elections have taken place, I've obviously got the responsibility to represent the shareholders, and we've also made a decision to remove the previous City Council nominee on the Board of Directors and replace that person with Councillor Boker. And I've had discussions with Councillor Boker, which have been very useful, about how the airport is operating. I've also had meetings with the other shareholder, and I've got another one next week with them to discuss the future of the airport. I've also been to the airport with Councillor Wilson and Councillor Boker to meet the Managing Director and the senior staff to talk about the airport. I've also got some further meetings with other interested people about the airport next week. The importance is that we need to make sure that if we sell the airport, we do it correctly, and we do it because it's the best interest of the airport itself and the businesses that operate there. And I am open-minded, though my gut feeling is that I would prefer to keep the airport in the ownership of Gloucester City Council and Cheltenham Borough Council. That might not be possible. It might be the financial implications that the best interest of the airport is to sell it. Now, there's different ways in which the airport could sell it. You could bring in a dragon, like the Dragon's Den, to take a shareholding in the airport between the two councils and put in capital investment to deliver some of the projects that you need. You could sell the airport completely, with both Gloucester and Cheltenham selling their shares, which is what the proposal had been. Or you could allow Cheltenham Borough Council to sell their half, and we would then be in partnership operating the airport with a commercial organisation. There are a number of options that we need to look. The decision to actually sell had been made by Cheltenham Borough Council, but it had not been made by this council. The 2020 report that went to council did not make it clear that it was absolutely the intention of this council to sell the airport. So we have to make that decision whether to put it up on the market. And if we just make that decision to put it up on the market, we then have to see whether we get bids which are of interest to us as a council and as shareholder that we'd want to take forward. I'm hoping that once we get to the end of August, that we'll be in a position to make a decision on that. And I would hope that also before doing that, I'd have conversations with both Terry Pullen, Stephanie Chambers, and the independent leader, as long as he behaves himself, of course. But that's where we are at the moment. I'm not going to make a quick decision based on being bums rushed by anybody into signing the deal, go and sell. I'm not entirely sure. It's a difficult decision. It's not an easy one. And the information I'm getting at the moment suggests it's not an easy one.
Thank you, Councillor Hilton. Just a reminder, if we could keep questions and answers as brief as possible, because we do have a lot to go through. I believe Councillor Pullen has another question. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll try. The second question is about the customer services gateway, which has recently been moved to the Eastgate Centre. I've read the Lib Dem manifesto, and in your manifesto you talk about making it easier for residents to contact the council in person to seek advice about a service or issue. Now, with the greatest respect, the management suite is hardly accessible. It doesn't make access easy. It's hidden away. It's only available by appointment. There is no drop-in facility. In fairness, it's a bit of an example of the vanishing council that Councillor Hilton always used to rant on about. So, why do you not abandon your idea to use the management suite, use an empty shop that is in the Eastgate Centre, easily accessible, on the ground, obvious where it is, and, you know, what's the point of having a gateway if it's locked away upstairs? Bring it downstairs. Let's see where it is, please.
Thank you, Councillor Pullen. Councillor Trimnell, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pullen, for that statement and your supplementary question. I hear what you're saying. I can sympathise what you're saying, and it's quite useful to have your opinion on the matter. However, the Eastgate Centre itself, I think you can't get much more central than that. And it's closer to the bus station, and it's going to have lift access, and it's going to be very well signposted as well. To be fair, it's a win-win, not only for this council because of the amount of money it's going to save, which will then go into vital services, but also for residents who want face-to-face appointments. And as an administration, we want to see those face-to-face appointments increase. No one wants to be stuck on the end of a telephone, and if it's needed, then a face-to-face appointment is always the better way. So really, although I do sympathise with what you're saying, it is happening. It's happening for a very good reason, and I think it is actually going to be very successful. So it may be a question you'd like to bring back in 6 months, just to see how successful this is going to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Trimnell. So we move on to question 5 now from Councillor Alistair Chambers, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the question, response regarding that the very late City Council audited accounts may finally be released this September, many months after the Lib Dems have come into administration. What concerns me, is the question, what concerns me and the city residents is why has taxpayers' money for millions and millions of pounds the last few years still taken another 6+ months to be disclosed to the public following the date the council said it would do before the elections, and it has since failed still to do so. Would you not agree that the excuse of the cyber attack is running very thin, and thus members and taxpayers want an immediate release of the many missing years of taxpayers' funds that have been paid into the City Council with no knowledge of where it's gone, where it's been spent and where it's gone to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alistair Chambers. Councillor Wilson to respond, please. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your supplementary question, Alistair. Strange thing is, I don't disagree with what you're saying. Those of you who know me will know that I've been banging on this for a long time, and it's been getting worse rather than better. Now, we were promised these accounts before the elections, and that is true. And so far, we still haven't seen them. When I took over, I was quite shocked to hear just how bad things still were. And it was so bad, in fact, that I almost expected to find a letter from my predecessor saying, "I'm sorry, Councillor, there are no accounts." But as Alistair quite rightly says, this is with me now. This is my problem and I have to solve it. So I can assure you there have been some frank discussions. The 22-23 accounts will be ready by September. The issue appears to be with the fixed asset module and the repopulating that after the cyber attack. So the cyber attack is still a factor, but we're getting over that. We have given them extra resource, so that's helping them clear the backlog. So I have given them a target. Well, that what I will insist on happening is that these accounts will be published in September. Once we get that fixed asset module populated, the 23-24 accounts should flow relatively easy out of that. We will be restricted to a certain extent in what the auditors can do, because that's another issue I've had as regards the performance of our external auditors. However, I will insist that by the time we get to the end of this financial year, I want the backlog cleared. I want us to be up to date, and I want us to be meeting the statutory deadlines once again, and I will not accept any excuses for us not doing that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. So, Councillor Alistair Chambers, you have another question. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate the response to my request for disclosure of how much money had been lost at the Club of Tuffley. I calculated around £165,000 of Gloucester City taxpayers' money has been lost by this City Council to a private business on behalf of the City Council lining up private businesses' pockets. That said, the costs associated with damages to the building which require works is approximately £5,000, not given that of the roof costing £50,000. I've seen videos of people entering the building and stripping and gutting the council-owned property before the leaseholder had vacated the property. I have videos I can send to this council. What would the council do, given that the business owner has not gone into liquidation and they have removed everything? The saying says everything except the kitchen sink. But with regards to this council-owned property, they removed everything, including the kitchen sink, of which I have a video. So what is this council going to do where City Council residents' money in an asset has been ripped and gutted out in front of our eyes, and nothing has been done? What will be done? Thank you. Just before you start, Declan, I'd really like to thank you for coming and looking at Longsmith car park with me the other day in the rain and seeing what a bad state it's in at the moment and all the bare cables and what health and safety liability is. So, but thank you for coming out. I really appreciate that. You're a top guy. And I appreciate you answering the questions, but this isn't aimed at you personally.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Thank you very much. Councillor Wilson, would you like to respond to the question? Thank you.
First of all, yes, I calculated 170,000. It is shocking, and it's probably at some stage we might have to do an investigation as to what went wrong with this particular company and this particular lease. We are involved in trying to recover as much as we can. I'm limited in what I can say because there could be certain legal issues involved, but I can assure you I'm not going to let this rest. We will get back as much as we possibly can. And more importantly, we need to make sure that in any future leases that we have the terms and conditions are much stronger than they have been in the past. Problem with a lot of leases like this, they're up to 50 years old. And the sort of the climate that existed 50 years ago is not necessarily the same as what we have today. The good news, of course, is that we do have a good tenant ready to move in now, and I think we're going to move forward in that. But I can assure you, I haven't forgotten about what happened and on our obligations to recover as much of it as we possibly can.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. So our next question is from Councillor Millard to the Cabinet Member for Culture and Leisure, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your responses. Can you please confirm that a serious review will take place regarding the costs and look at making it more accessible for our Gloucester residents?
Councillor Courtney, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Millard. Yes, I think I said in the response that I provided that there is a post-event analysis ongoing at the moment. We're analysing all of the feedback that we've received from people, both from people who've attended and people who weren't able to attend. I see where your question's coming from. I have similar feedback from some residents in my ward too of Tuffley, and I'm sure other councillors have. And I've given the reasons for why the ticket price had to be set this time. So for the sake of brevity, I won't repeat it all now. But we are also looking at how, across the whole cultural programme, not just the Tall Ships Festival, the next one that will be in 2027, looking at how we make sure that they are accessible to people from all income levels, whether that's through having a basic offering that's free and then charging a ticket price for other things, or if it's a ticketed event, is how we can make free tickets available to people with lower incomes through community groups and so on. So it is something we're taking seriously and looking to address for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney. Our next question is from Councillor O'Donnell. Please stay seated if that's more comfortable for you, Councillor O'Donnell. For Councillor Courtney, I believe.
Yeah, thank you for the reply. I much appreciate it. But it just seems that the process always seems to be slowed down at the moment. And in this case, the motion was to be at least nearly halfway completed, at least by the end of 2026. So I don't know why the strategy is not going to be put together till 2026. Surely it'd be better to do it now. I mean, whilst we wait and there's a delay, you get lots of disabled and wheelchair-bound children that are only going to be able to go to the parks to watch other kids play because they can't use these equipment. We need to move this on a lot quicker if we can. Surely by now we should be working on a strategy already to at least start updating parks early in 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. The response I gave was based on the terms of the motion that was passed in March, and so that outlined that the new inclusive place strategy would be developed when the next open spaces strategy is developed. We have said that any new parks, play areas that are developed in the interim period will include elements of accessibility. So we acknowledge that we want to see things done now. We don't want to just not do anything to address it until the new open spaces strategy is ready. For any parks, any play areas that are developed, we would need to consult with the community to understand what level of accessibility needs to be provided. It's unlikely to be a one-size-fits-all. There'll need to be a needs analysis. We'll need to speak to local community groups and schools to understand what the accessibility needs are and how we can balance that with the budget that's available. So that's the work that we're doing in the interim until the new strategy is finalised and approved.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney. So our next question is from Councillor James to Councillor Sebastian Field, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the response to my initial question. My supplementary question really is what are we supposed to tell our residents about the weed clearance? It has been particularly poor this year, no doubt due to the weather. Can Ubico not give us some kind of schedule, a proposed schedule, or at least a list of areas that will be treated at certain times of the year, just so we've got something to go back to residents with, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the question. Obviously, it's not ideal, the year that we've had with the excessive rain and the unusually warm weather. It has meant that the weeds have grown particularly quickly. And when you spray the weeds with glyphosate, as we do, if it's washed away immediately, then it's completely null and void, essentially. And what we are having to do often is delay when we start the spraying. And so a schedule would be completely pointless and redundant because it would just change so much that it wouldn't ever be accurate. What I can do, what I'm happy to do, is let you know after this meeting if your area has been done already, and if it's not, when it will be likely to be done in weather dependent. The other thing that we are doing, we have a new machine called HACO, H-A-K-O, which was bought by the City Council and Nubico, cost neutral to the contract, to the budget. And that is a fantastic machine. It rips the weeds out at the root, which is a much quicker and more environmentally friendly method of removing them. And it will last longer. If you get them out at the root, it's much better than pulling them out, than spraying them and killing them off. And it's more eco-friendly as well. So HACO is going around the city, not on its own, but it's being manned and put around the city. It's doing a really good job. If you had an area that's been done by HACO, you will see that it's really fantastic. It is slow because it takes about 4 or 5 empties each day it's in action because it produces so much green material that it rips from the ground. So it will take a long time, possibly a year, to do the whole city. But the idea with it is that when we do it the next time and the next time after that, it will reduce the amount of time it takes because the weeds will have been ripped out at the root. So we are getting there. I do hear what you're saying, but if you want to know whether Kingsway's been done, I can give you that information after the meeting. There's no problem.
Thank you, Councillor Field, for that response. Our next question is from Councillor Bell, and it's for Councillor Trimnell. Thank you so much.
If you know me, I probably don't need this. One of the reasons I stood for this council is because we don't have a community doctors in my area. I have 3,500 residents. The Grange estate where I personally live has 80% of residents over 70 years old that cannot access Aspen Medical Centre. There are no buses in Horton Road. To access Quedgeley, they have to go into town and then get another bus back to Quedgeley if they don't drive. Surely this is just irresponsible. And I've seen the reply to say that little bungalow in Warwick Avenue could deal with the amount of people that live in Copeland Park, live in the homely, and also the caravan site that there are voters as well. To say that that place is only open 2 days a week can cope with that amount of residents. I do see that the planning's going in today for the Podsmead area. I'm sure if we're looking for somewhere to put a new doctor's surgery, that would be absolutely brilliant because it's on a bus route. So anybody can get on a bus, disabled, regardless of age. So I just want to know what's happening. And whatever the answer is, whatever meeting you have, I want to see what's happening in that meeting. I want answers. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Thank you. Councillor Trimnell, please.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bell, for that. And I think actually, apologies, we were just noting that Aspen Medical Practice are taking on new.
Try getting an appointment.
But yeah, exactly, totally. It's probably one of the medical practices that has most concerns in terms of trying to get through to the phones. And also in terms of accessibility as well. You were saying you need 2 buses to get from where you are to Aspen, so I completely agree with you. And I think it does show the dire need in not just the city of Gloucester, but the country when it comes to our medical facilities. You may have heard Labour has planned to do a massive development over the life of this Parliament. And yet, let's hope we have the infrastructure, like the doctor surgeries, that supports those new developments. Just to answer the supplementary in a sense, I think it's more of an action that you want. And I suggest that between us, we write to the new elected MP, Alex McIntyre, and we, from both of us, and it's something we can draft together, and also copy in the chair of the Health and Overview Scrutiny Committee at Gloucestershire County Council, and actually really highlight this issue and see where we're going to go with it. I hope that's acceptable for you.
Am I allowed a response? Didn't think I was.
Thank you, Councillor Trimnell. Next, we have Councillor Marshall with a question for Councillor Field, I believe. Thank you.
Will the Cabinet...
Councillor Marshall, sorry to interrupt. Do you have your microphone on?
Sorry, no, sorry. Sorry.
That's okay, no problem. Okay, do carry on, carry on.
So in the area of Barton and Treadworth, we have a lot of fly tipping consistently. We have hotspots. And my question is, will he commit to hiring more environmental officers? Because they're obviously, they are monitoring the whole city and it's a consistent problem. And will there be cameras installed? Many thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Councillor Field, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall, for the question. Yes, it's obviously a problem. That particular ward presents some particular challenges, and I know, for example, that my colleague, Councillor Bohemia, has been assiduous in reporting fly tipping, as I'm sure you are. And yes, it's certainly something I've discussed already with Ishmael Ryman about employing some more officers and bringing them in-house. That's something he's going to report back to me at our next meeting. So I'm happy to take that on board and say that it's already in train. The trouble with cameras, we have a limited number in the city. They're expensive to operate and to prosecute people as a result of implementing them. And often you find that you put them in a hotspot, like you mentioned, and actually it will then make everyone aware of that's where the cameras are, and they'll stop fly tipping there, but it won't remove the problem. They'll fly tip somewhere else. I've had it happen in Podsmead in my ward. So there are limits to the effectiveness of that, but obviously it's something we do consider. But I think the enforcement officers is probably the better idea, and that's something I've already been pushing for.
Thank you, Councillor Field. Our next question is from Councillor Gravels, please. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, Madam Mayor, thank you. Can I just be a bit cheeky and add something to Rebecca's reply to Councillor Bell?
I'm afraid not. Councillor Gravels.
Okay, I'll write to both. Thank you. I'll write to both of you because there's a much better way of getting the issues that Councillor Bell wanted addressed through your member, Councillor Castle, who serves on our scrutiny committee. So my supplementary on the issue that I raised is, does the Cabinet member agree with me that it's really good that as far as possible, meetings of overview and scrutiny, meetings of all committees of this council should be held in public with the press and public present. And it was regrettable, I think, that on the first overview scrutiny committee I chaired, the one with any substantive issues on, we had to go into private session, and that was very disappointing. It's good to see that we are able to produce all of the answers to the questions that I was asking at that meeting, and taken together with the answers that Councillor Chambers got, this doesn't really add up, does it, to Gloucester's finest hour? So, Declan, I'm wondering, as a Cabinet member, listening to the points that Councillor Chambers was making, and listening to the questions that I put to you here, and the general discourse across the city, what do you think, as the lead member, are the lessons, the most important lessons that we can all learn from this episode? So I appreciate that Jeremy's just whispered the answer to you.
Councillor Wilson, please. Thank you, Councillor Gravels. Councillor Wilson, thank you.
I'll tell you what he whispered in my ear. It's just because the Tories can't run the council, but that's very much a Jeremy answer. As regards, first of all, the overview and scrutiny meeting, I remember in audit and governance, we had we were both on the same side as regards, I think it was the Section 106 debacle, that we held it in public despite being advised not to. There's the right time and the wrong time to do these things. With regards to this particular issue, I did not. We were there to discuss one church, which is really good news. I'm very impressed with them, by the way. We didn't realise we were going to be asked about the history of what happened before, and I understand there were reasons behind that. These things happen, so we had to sort of be cautious because I don't want to jeopardise any future action or anything that might be done by the people who lost out as a result. So we had to sort of take it behind closed doors. As regards what are the lessons are the next time when these leases are all when they expire, because they're very long leases, we should be making sure that there are leaks for the sort of the 21st century rather than for one that would have sufficed 50 years ago, because I'm afraid we're living in a different world today, and as we can see from what happened in Tufflin.
Councillor Chambers de Bus, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This thing about the dog waste bins, and overflowing litter bins, I am a little, well, confused about this, because I know for a fact that in the first quarter of 2024 there were complaints because we put some in. But my supplementary question is, it's fair and well saying that things are being monitored better and it's going to improve the service. We are just about, or have already just started the school summer holidays. Overflowing dog waste bins and rubbish bins are a health hazard, and quite frankly, with rubbish bins, with glass and tins, dangerous. How are we going to ensure that until everything is properly audited and logged and on a better cycle, we are not going to be waiting 2 weeks for overflowing bins to be emptied, which is currently what the situation is? Because we need to have a plan for this in place for the school holidays. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers de Bus, and Councillor Field to respond, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is a big problem, and I do take on board what you're saying. In regard to complaints, it may well be that we're distinguishing between complaints and reports. So I've made plenty of reports about overflowing dog waste bins or litter bins as a councillor. I'm sure residents do. Unless it's a formal complaint, it won't be registered as such. And I think that's because your question mentioned the word complaint. That was the reason for that. Nevertheless, it is a problem in our city. It's a particular problem it's not one that's solved necessarily by putting in more bins. You can increase the number of bins exponentially, but people will often, rather than take their rubbish home or find an available bin, often if it's full, they'll just put the dog waste bag or the empty can or whatever just by the foot of the bin that's already full. And they can see it's full. And there's often in our parks, I mean, my ward of Podsmead, Scott Avenue, we've got 18 bins on Scott Avenue. People still don't use them. You can't, unfortunately, persuade everybody to use a bin. The ideal is obviously take your rubbish home, recycle it, gets income for the council. That's the best thing. But, failing that, put it in a bin. It's not hard to do. We are running a anti-litter campaign. I've just seen some fantastic posters that primary school children in Gloucester have created. We're going to put those all around the parks. Sorry, Councillor Chambers, something amusing? Okay, thanks.
It was actually, yeah.
It was.
Okay. Would you like to share it then?
Yeah. Did you say you'd recycle dogs poo? I just was that what you said? Sorry, just clarify. We just discussed.
Sorry, I was saying that
We need to move
residents can
on.
take their litter home.
Councillors.
So if it's dog waste, they can put it in a bin, or they can take their recycling home and recycle it and make income for the council. But when I was talking, it was about a poster competition for children in Gloucester, and I thought you'd probably think that was a good idea. So I was disappointed to...
It's a fabulous idea.
Okay, thank you very much.
Could we stick to the discussion, please? Thank you so much. Thank you. Councillor Miller, your question, please. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Do you have a supplementary? Councillor Miller.
No supplementary.
No supplementary. Thank you, Councillor Miller. Moving on then to Councillor Lewis, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's really weird being over this side anyway. As you say, it's up to the council for the special allowance. I don't think it's needed. For 20 years, we've done everything without it. The city's actually started to thrive. So I'm a bit disappointed to say that this special advisor cannot be questioned, which I think is bad for democracy. If they're going to have an influence on decision making, we should, and take an SLA, we should be able to question them in full council. So will the cabinet member, performance of resources or whatever it is, or whoever is making the decision over there, can you agree that this role is vital? I agree, but it should be able to be scrutinised. If you're taking a public purse, you should be able to be scrutinised.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Councillor Hilton to respond, please. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Lewis was at the committee, and it's a pity that we're debating this about 3 different places. But the independent panel has considered the portfolio advisory member, whose first action was to be put on the board of Gloucestershire Airport, and 2 is now on the investment board and will be on the transformation board to provide input and challenge and new ideas. But ultimately, the decisions that will be made by the cabinet members. So if you need to ask a question, then that question needs to be directed at the cabinet member, because they will have the authority. This role is really to try and provide additional help and additional mind and observation on the big decisions that the council needs to make. When we talk about special responsibility allowances, there are members in this council chamber that are receiving those special responsibility allowances, but there isn't a question time for them. I mean, I haven't noticed that there's a question time where I can ask Councillor Chambers over there questions.
Welcome
council. But we did agree at the General Purposes Committee on your recommendation that this role would provide a written report to the Scrutiny Committee every 6 months for the first year to see how it beds in, and for members to be able to question. And you might well be able to question in more detail than you would at this council meeting, where it looks like we're already running out of time for questions to the cabinet member. I mean, that's the situation, and that was the recommendations. And if you think you want to amend the recommendation when we get to the General Purposes Committee, well, then that's up to you, and that would need to be carried by council. But if you did that, and then there was a question you want, and you said, well, I'm going to put this one here to the advisor, then I would just turn around and say to the office, no, that's my portfolio, I'll answer the question at council. As I've done with one of the questions which came to the wrong person, and I said, no, that's my responsibility, I will answer the question. But ultimately, Andy, we want to be as open as possible, we want to be as inclusive as possible, and we need to make decisions on a wider remit and with more members of the council than we had in the past. It's about making sure that we get things right, and we involved everybody in getting those things right. And I think the last administration was exceptionally narrow and unusual for a district council with just 5 members in the cabinet. And I think, from my observations as an opposition member, I think there was too much burden placed on people, and you didn't have enough time, or we didn't have enough opportunities to hear what other people were saying. And that's the purpose, to make sure we get things right. And we want to consult, as I said, collaboration and cooperation with the Conservative group, the Labour group, and the Independent. I just wish some of these questions that we've had here and the motion today, why you just didn't write a letter. Dear Chairman of the General Purposes Committee, can we consider this, can we consider that? Because that's the way to do it, rather than asking questions at council, which are taking up time on constitutional matters which aren't necessary.
Thank you, Councillor Hilton. We are getting very short on time now, so I'm going to ask Councillor Patel for his question, please. Thank you, Councillor Patel. We've jumped to question 18 in Councillor Brooker's absence.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much for the response, but I don't think it actually answered my question as to why the council can no longer provide a schedule. I mean, I recall from previous years, possibly even as far as last year, that there was a schedule in place, which used to be on the council website for anybody to see, including members of the public. So why they cannot no longer produce a schedule is beyond me. Now, this year we've been told that the UBICO will only be completing 1 round of weed spraying instead of 2. So it sounds like already corners are being cut. I would like to see, and a question has already been asked by another colleague regarding weeding. It is a big problem. It's a big problem every year. And it fills up our casework significantly this time of year. Quite frankly, it can be avoided. If we had a schedule in place, we can direct straight away residents to that schedule. Now, all you have to do is have a disclaimer on there to say this could be subject to change depending on the weather conditions. Simple as that. Why you can't produce a schedule, I can't understand. And I was just going to also add is why are the council and UBICO not providing a proactive service on this? Quite frankly, you've been there, you know what it's like. It's the same every year. We're getting a reactive service instead of a proactive service. And literally, it's a bit like the grass cutting. We're having to beg and beg the council to do their job and UBICO to do their job. And quite frankly, it's unsatisfactory. Do you agree? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Patel. Councillor Field, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Civic pride is one of the central points in the environmental section of the Liberal Democrat manifesto that we were elected on, and it's in my portfolio. It's a high priority for me of getting this right. That being said, the answer lays out the fact that we can't just go out spraying all the time, because if it's too wet, as it has been on several occasions, many days this year, it just gets washed away. The ideal is what we do is we spray the weeds and then they start to die off, and then we follow up with one of the ripper machines, either the 2 traditional ones that we have or the Hayco, the new one. And that will, in the fullness of time, after about a year of going around the whole city, once it's been around once, it will get faster in subsequent years. Now, I'm more than happy to provide you with a list of streets that have been done or are yet to be done. And that's being updated daily. I literally had an email just going into this meeting of the very latest picture on that. I'm happy to tell you if Barton has been done or not, and when it will be followed up. But yes, it is a reactive service, but the new machine and the new practices will make it proactive, and it will get better in future years. And I'll make it a priority that it gets done. So you have my word on that.
Thank you, Councillor Field. We're going to just take one more question. I know we're going over time, but it's related. It's from Councillor Walker, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy with the answer I received and pleased to hear that mowing crews will be paying as much attention as they can to collect litter before mowing takes place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. So that is the end of members' question time. So we're moving on now to...
There are no questions.
There are questions for chairs of meetings. So we go on to issues for decision by council. So item 9 on your agenda. Councillor Wilson, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay, item number 9 is this is the annual Treasury Management Report, which is required to be presented to the Council, the Audit Committee and Governance Committee and Cabinet every year. It's sort of it's It's drawn up with reference to the SIPFA Code of Practice, and it recommends that members be updated on what our Treasury management activities were during the year and resolve that the contents of the report be noted. I'll take you through a few of the brief highlights. The main points on the report, if you have it open in front of you, paragraph 3.2, it details the funds we've had available to invest in during the period. And paragraph 3.3, it's the funds which are available for investment for more than 1 year. What we need to be clear in our minds about when you look at paragraph 3.2, the majority of our funds are what you call on call. That means we receive funding at the start of the month, and by the end of the month, we've pretty much used it all up. So these are where we invested in. We've invested in various accounts that have interest rates quoted for a couple of days, really. It's all very short-term investments, but we have a duty to get the best value of money that we possibly can by making sure that even these funds are invested as wisely as we possibly can. Our short-term investments did slightly underperform against the benchmark rate, but sometimes, unfortunately, that happens. If we get to paragraph 4, new borrowing, in the second half of the year, 2023-24, 2 lots of new long-term borrowing was undertaken, 20 million for King Square, the hub redevelopment, and 2 million for the food dock. These were for the purchase, and 2 million, for the purchase of multiple temporary accommodation properties. That's one of the big pressure points that we've had in our finances over the last year. If I can take you to paragraph 5, debt rescheduling. Opportunities have been very limited this year, so no debt rescheduling has taken place. Item number 6, compliance with Treasury and prudential limits. I refer you to Appendix 1. These are the prudential and Treasury indicators as of the 31st of March 2024. The important thing to note there is the Council has operated within the Treasury limits set out in the Council's Treasury Management Strategy Statement and in compliance with the Council's Treasury Management Practices. So we are compliant. The only other thing to point out is Appendix 2, which is really just the interest rate predictions and forecasts that were given by our Treasury advisors. So essentially, that's it. That's our Treasury Management report, and it just shows you how we've performed over the year and states that we've kept within our prudential and Treasury guidelines. So I think Council is asked to, what do we expect to do? Just to the contents of the report be noted. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Do you have a seconder, please? Would you like to speak now or reserve the right, Councillor Hilton?
I'll reserve.
Reserve the right. Thank you. Are there any amendments? Councillor Alistair Chambers. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. How long do I have on this call over? I'll be as quick as I can. Is there time limit on this call over? For my amendment? I am, yes. I'll just ask for the time I've given. Is it a minute, 2 minutes? Well, we've got into about 30 seconds already, so I'll just carry on. So this Treasury document 3.2 states 21.7 million. And this is mainly dependent on the timing of payments. Payments being business rates, domestic rates, national non-domestic rates, housing benefit overpayments, and also other selective payments. So my amendment, on the basis of this amendment...
Hold up, Madam Mayor. We've got...
Just a moment.
We've got somebody saying they're making an amendment, and he's talking to amendment, and nobody knows what the amendment is. And it would be useful to get that amendment and have it clarified in writing before we carry on with the debate.
I don't have to in writing on the spot for... So sit down, please, because you're right and correct.
No, you need to propose the amendment, and we need to know what it is before you speak to it.
I was till you were interrupted. I said...
Councillor Alistair Chambers, could you read out the amendment, please?
So the amendment is, as the council has been underperforming by benchmarks on invested amounts on city council taxpayers' money, that there should be, under the Nolan principles, accountability, openness and honest leadership for where taxpayers' money is being invested. So the amendment is to ensure that the council notifies members how they're investing the 21 million of council tax money that's held by payments from everyone here and all residents of the city. So we know if they're ethical investments locally, investments in arms, investments in weapons. We would like to know what these investments are. So the amendment, to clarify, is to make it fully aware to every councillor here how taxpayers' money is being invested worldwide. I think that's quite a fair thing, and I hope you'd like to see how the council is investing taxpayers' money. That's the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alistair Chambers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I just clarify what I've written down is the amendment, in addition to noting the report, is a further recommendation that council is made fully aware to every councillor of how the investments have been invested. Was that the amendment?
That is, for open and transparency for taxpayers. Thank you.
Councillor Alistair Chambers, you may now speak for 5 minutes to that amendment. Thank you.
I won't take up 5 minutes because it's very hot in here and obviously people that. But my point of this amendment is that everyone here in our city should have a right to know how their money, how their tax money has been invested. Is it nationally? Is it locally? Is it worldwide? And I'm sure taxpayers here would have an interest in investments in our local businesses to build our city. £21 million invested in our city would be much better rather than invested in, potentially, arms for bombing Gaza. We don't know if it's been invested in that. We don't know if it's been invested in a war chest. We don't know if it's been invested for public health. We don't know where it's been invested. So all I'm asking for, based on the 7 principles of the Noland, is integrity. Are we investing it ethically? Objectivity. I'm being objective in what I'm requesting. Accountability. We want the council to be accountable to the residents of the city by saying how they invest the money. Openness. We want the council to be open, clear. The next one's honest. Let's have an honest council showing taxpayers where their money is invested. And let's have leadership, right from the top. Jeremy Hilton, leading the way and showing taxpayers how their money is invested, what return they're getting, and it would give reason for the underperformance benchmark. Right? Is there potential that, not saying they would do, council officers are investing in private companies that might be run by their friend, neighbour, relative? We don't know. I'm not suggesting that's such a thing, but it's a possibility. It's been shown in government. It could be shown in local government. We need accountability, we need transparency, and we need openness of where our taxpayers' money is being spent. And all I ask for is a list so we can review it, look at it, and discuss it in council. I'm sure it's very good. I'm sure it's very ethical. And I'm sure it's not like GL1, the cyber incidents and many other failings of the council. I'm sure they've done well, even though they've failed with the benchmark and it's heavily under. But yeah, fingers crossed they'll take an improvement with their investing and we can actually see some decent returns back for taxpayers' money on ethical investment. And I hope together, as a council, we can support this amendment, which only gives openness and transparency to where our city's £21 million is being invested in. To final on that, the £21 million is an average amount of funds available, depending on where in the year finances come in. That being business rates, council tax, as well as national non-domestic rates, housing benefits overpayments, getting the money into the council. And to get the money into the council, you need a payment process platform to do that. Another failing, massive failing of this council is that they didn't renew. They did not, I'm going to get shut down here because no one wants this to come out, but they didn't renew the contract to get payments into the city.
Councillor Alistair Chambers, that is a different item, and I think your 5 minutes is probably up now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Where's the time?
Do you have a seconder?
Can I have the clock, please?
Do you have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell.
Does he wish to speak now?
Do you wish to speak now or reserve the right? Thank you. Councillor Wilson, is the amendment accepted? It isn't. Okay. We now go on to debate on the amendment, then please. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think this amendment misunderstands what we mean by Treasury management. What we're talking about here is short-term cash deposits. So it doesn't go anywhere else but into banks on a short-term basis in which we earn interest on. It's not invested in what you seem to be referring to, stocks and shares, and maybe big wealth funds, which is not what this is at all. This is just how we manage our cash on a day-to-day basis and which banks we invested in. It's no more than that. And it's make sure that we keep within the Treasury principles that this Council agrees every year. So it's a completely different thing. Now, if you want to wait until the full accounts get published, you can look and see if there's any investments in there, but I don't think you'll find any. We're not the sort of council that does those kinds of investments. If only we did have the money to do that, but we don't. So it's not relevant to this whatsoever. This is a Treasury management report. It's to do with bank deposits and nothing else. So, and how we manage them and how we manage and hedge against interest rates exposure in the future. That's something completely different. So I can't accept the amendment on the basis that it's talking about something that's completely different. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Any other debate?
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any other debate? Councillor Pullen? Oh, sorry. Councillor Pullen first and then Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, the report, as we know, has been discussed at Audit and Governance and passed, and it was passed at Cabinet. And there were no issues as far as we were aware. However, I do think Councillor Chambers has a point. The council should be accountable to how it invests its money. It is in the public interest. We want to know where that money goes. And so we're asking for some transparency in that, and we would support that amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Pullen. Councillor Jones, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. Just on the point that Councillor Chambers and Councillor Wilson have identified short-term cash deposits, I'd be advocating investing in mutual societies, so there's no shareholders, no dividends to pay, like the building societies locally, like Nationwide, Coventry, Leeds, which are part of Gloucester City, and also Tridos, an investment bank, and supporting that, we should have, again, part of Councillor Chambers' point about we should be building on money and anchor institutions investing in our local society, building on national issues like the sovereign wealth fund that the Labour Party are about to introduce.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Are there any more debate? Councillor O'Donnell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Right, I find it quite worrying. You said that the council invested in banks, which is great. But what really worries me and bothers me a lot is that the City Council lost, what, £2 million of taxpayers' money in Icelandic bank investments. So I just feel, I'm not saying that there's anything underhand going on or anything, deals under the table or anything like that, but we need the transparency and we need it now. End of. That's it, really. We just need it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Councillor Patel, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I hear what Councillor Chambers has said, and I also hear what Councillor Wilson has said, that this may be irrelevant with regard to this particular item on the agenda, but nonetheless, I do feel strongly that we shouldn't be holding information from the taxpayer, from the public, and I think it would be in the interest of the people of this city for this council to provide a list of companies that we have invested in. I don't think it should be secret. What are we trying to hide here? So let's get it out there in the open, let people see it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Patel.
Councillor Lewis.
Councillor Lewis, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Couple of points. Icelandic, we got the money back from that, so that's null and void. So that was just a spurious thing thrown in, because I was there at the time, you lot weren't. I see where you're coming from, Declan. I think it's just bank interest rates and all the rest of it, and this, that, and the other. Just give us a list, mate. which banks it is and whatever. If it means it's got to be on a green paper just for us, so that we know that nothing else is going on, I got no problems with that. But yeah, Jeremy was very much about open transparency. Well, if people are worried about it, let's just be open and transparent. If there's confidential information that we cannot give, well, we shouldn't give it. But tell us that that's the problem. So personally, I will be agreeing with Alistair and Terry that we should have it in, whether it's on a green paper that says that this is the companies we can, because there might be conflicts of interest and divulging business rates and all the rest of it. So I see where you're coming from, Jeremy. And sorry, I forgot who was answering it. Declan, you're a good, honest bloke. Let's just have it, please.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Is there any more debate?
Councillor Hilton.
Oh, Councillor Hilton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is about cash flow, about the council running its business, and paying out for services and getting income in from its, and just using bank accounts to do that. I mean, I think a list is easy to request for the banks that we use, but to try and track every payment in and out would be incredibly bureaucratic. It would waste a lot of officer time and a lot of money. And what really is disappointing about the attempt to amend this is the fact that this is something that should have been discussed at the Audit and Governance Committee to ask whether this information could be provided and how easy it was to provide it. But we're talking about cash flow. We're talking about this bank offers, we've got £5 million just come in, this goes into that account because we're going to get 5.5% or 7% there because it's just being offered. And we're talking about banks that are operating in the United Kingdom. We're not talking about investing it into certain portfolios or investment funds. It's about operating cash flow. So you're really creating a red tape and bureaucracy that is going to wear this council down and wear down our officers by constantly trying to tell you what's happening. And I tell you something, Madam Mayor, that lot there, they wouldn't even read it. I bet they wouldn't even read it or ask any follow-up questions on it. Or they're asking for something to be awkward. We can give them easily a list of the banks that we operate from and what might be the normal funding that's going through. What we can't do is keep providing that information every day or every now and again. And two, you wouldn't want to receive that information every day, all the time. This has been the procedure that this council's operated, the Treasury management. This is just an update report. But it's a pity these discussions weren't talked about in committee. What are you grinning for, Councillor Chambers, as you're reading your mobile phone? I notice you do that quite often.
Thank you, Councillor Hilton. Councillor Bell, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Regarding the investments, myself personally, if you put them into banks, that's good. But all you're doing is lending banks money to do single-day investment banking, which they do, and that's where they make massive profits. I've seen 22 million. You've got a return of 727,000. Maybe I'm slightly out. Well, that's less than 5%. I can take 22 million down to Abbey National, and they'll give me 8% tomorrow. So I'd rather you just walk down there and stuck it in there, then we know where the money is. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor Stephanie Chambers, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to address Councillor Hilton's suggestion that the people over here don't read anything. I find it very offensive.
Yeah.
We all read these papers and we all take it seriously. And the fact about audits and governance, not all members are on audits and governance. So the fact we're debating it here, it's on the forward plan, it's coming to council for a reason. That's the process, and we're entitled to debate this paper as we are doing. So firstly, I find that very offensive. Secondly, yes, this might not be the big investments or whatever that the council are doing, but actually the core of what is being proposed is fair. The people that money this council is a custodian of the people's money to spend on the things that this city needs, and they put the trust in us to do that. However, investments are a critical thing, and people do have ethics and they do want to know where their money is going, and I think it's public money and they should know.
Thank you, Councillor Stephanie Chambers. Is there anyone else that wishes to debate? Councillor Patel. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Oh, I beg your pardon, Councillor Patel. You've already spoken. My apologies. Anyone else who would like to contribute to the debate?
Okay. So, Councillor Wilson has the right of reply.
Councillor Wilson, you have the right of reply.
Can you remind me what this amendment was? Because I've forgotten amidst all the excitement. Could you read it out again?
Thank you,
John
Madam
will
Mayor.
read it out for you.
What I've written down is, in addition to the resolution that's already on your order papers, that there is an additional resolution which reads, this council resolves that it be made available to every councillor how and where the investments referred to in this report have been invested. Is that correct, Councillor Chambers, or good enough?
That is.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, here's my suggestion. We're only talking about 4 or 5 different banks here, so I can give you a list of what those banks are, and then you can go and do your own research on what they're like. And I think that would satisfy the requirements of that amendment. And then you would know where exactly then the council's money is being invested.
Sorry, can you clarify that a bit louder? Sorry, the fans. Can you say that again?
I can give you a list of the banks that we have been using so that you have that information.
Are you happy? No? No.
Okay. Forgot what I was going to say. I'm in closing speech now. I think that...
That's adjourned.
On the understanding, I will accept the amendment on the understanding if we can give the members here the details of who the banks are that we've been investing the money in. It's impossible to quantify it in terms of money simply because money's going in and out every few days. You know, this point about Barclays can give you 8%. They wouldn't give you 8% if you're only putting it in for 3 days. These are short-term accounts, so that would give you the information that you require. And it's more than the Treasury. I mean, I see that here they are pins over here, but this Treasury management report has pretty much stayed the same for the last 10 years. So when you were in charge, you were perfectly happy then for it to go through. So I think the information is on sufficient, but we can add that little bit extra that says who the banks are so that people can see just exactly where the money has gone, if that's acceptable to everybody else. And if that is, that's what I'm proposing. And on that basis, I will accept the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. So the amendment is accepted. So
It was originally rejected, so we now have to vote on it.
Okay. So we're now going to vote on the amendment, and Mr. McGuinty will repeat it if anyone would like to hear it again.
I think everyone's happy now. Thank you for conceding, Jeremy.
So now we're going to vote on the amendment.
Those in favour?
Those in favour?
Against?
Those against? Any abstentions?
Right, so the amendment's carried.
The amendment is carried. Thank you.
And
that has now become the substantive motion.
Are there any further amendments?
Are there any further amendments? Oh, yes, Councillor Lewis.
Just a question on that. Didn't he accept the amendment, so that becomes automatically the substantive, so we just voted on that?
It's too late.
Okay.
All right, sorry about that.
On the substantive motion now.
Is there any debate on the substantive motion now?
No.
Doesn't
Does
look like
Councillor Wilson wish, or Councillor Hilton wish to make any closing speech?
Does Councillor Wilson or Councillor Hilton wish to make any closing speeches, please?
No, I don't think there's anything else to say, except that I think we've overcomplicated something that isn't necessarily that complicated. Only I just want to make one other point of information. As regards to the Icelandic Bank saga, God knows how many years ago that was. From memory, it was a bank called the Heritage Bank, which was a UK-owned subsidiary of an Icelandic bank. We didn't lose any money. I think the County Council probably did, but we didn't, so we got all the money back. So it's not true that this bank has lost money in an Icelandic bank. We're very careful about who we choose to invest our money, and the fact that we were so careful was the fact that even though the government at the time was encouraging councils to invest in Icelandic banks, we decided not to take that route. And so therefore, the bank we actually invested in was a UK registered bank, so we didn't lose any money, just so that is clear. And we always are careful with how we invest local council taxpayers' money, and we will continue to do so. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson. So we're now going to vote on the amended substantive motion. So all those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? The motion is carried. Thank you. Right, we're now moving on to item 10 on the agenda, and it's for Councillor Hilton to move. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Independent Remuneration Panel presented a report to the General Purposes Committee on Monday, and the recommendations from the General Purposes Committee were accepted, and I'll just go through them. If you go to agenda item 13, the amendments, you'll see that the first recommendation is that we accept the 4 recommendations from the panel. The recommendation 1 is that a special responsibility allowance of 5,172.14 pence, equal to that of the chairs of overview and scrutiny and the planning committee, be approved for this role, title to be agreed, backdated with effect of the 20th of May 2024. Recommendation 2, that the views of the panel at para 7 regarding membership of the overview and scrutiny committee be noted, and that the council instructs the role description to be prepared for this role, and that recommendation 4, that the panel be given the opportunity to review this role after a reasonable period. The remuneration panel also recommended that the title be changed from the one which was originally thought for, which was a cabinet support member, to policy advisory member. That was accepted by the General Purposes Committee. And then the other final recommendation, which is an amendment, that the post holder be required to prepare a report on their activities biannually in the first year of operation and annually thereafter, which will be made available to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee should they wish to include in their work programme. I move.
Thank you, Councillor Hilton. Do you have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Do you wish to speak now or reserve the right? Thank you. Are there any amendments? Yes.
Stephanie Chambers first, I think.
No.
An amendment, yeah?
The amendment
Councillor Chambers.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much. Just bear with me. That the policy advising member who is being paid approximately 5,800 of council taxpayers' money, which is the same level as a chair of this council, should have the same requirements as a chair. That being members' questions during the 15 minutes of chair, which would not increase members' questioning time like we ran it today. It's a separate area of questioning afterwards. So I'll just repeat that amendment, that the policy advisory member who is being paid an additional £5,800 of council taxpayers' money, which is the same level as a chair of this council, should have the same requirements as a chair. Thank you. Hope you go to the debate.
Head of Paid Service is going to explain the situation on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the situation with this is that the amendment as described by Councillor Alistair Chambers would require a change to the Constitution. Therefore, I think the amendment to go forward would need to be worded along the lines of to ask the General Purposes Committee to consider a proposal to allow this role, post holder, to be scrutinised at council. So it would need to be phrased with that opening line that the General Purposes Committee have to consider a report from the head of paid service and then make a recommendation to council. Are you okay to amend?
I'm happy with that, thank you.
The amendment in that way? So does anyone want me to read that again? Right. So the amendment needs to read something like that General Purposes Committee be asked to consider a report from the head of paid service and make a recommendation to council as to whether the post holder, this post holder, should be accessible to scrutiny at council meetings. Is that sufficient, Councillor Chambers?
That is, thank you. Thank you.
Did everyone get that?
Did everyone hear? Yeah. Okay. Councillor Alistair Chambers, do you wish to speak on that amendment? If so, you have 5 minutes to do so. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. The reason I've called this amendment is because we had an opportunity to question in, I think it was General Purposes, if I remember rightly, on this exact matter. And the reason I've called this in again was because numerous amounts of times when I raised a question, I was told I was being disrespectful, unfair, for mentioning the member's name, which has made his position aware today, Ashley Bowker. The reason I felt comfortable in mentioning the member's name was purely for the fact that on the meeting on the 20th of the 5th, 2024, hence the reason I questioned the meeting minutes if Councillor Hilton had said Ashley Bowker's name and mentioned the position, was an evidence to show that I was by no means being disrespectful whatsoever, and I was only mentioning what was already documented in council minutes to the public in a public forum, which was live streamed. And at every opportunity where I raised a valid question on this payment, on the position, and how it was going to be managed, I was immediately shut down and told, because I mentioned Ashley Bowker's name, I was being disrespectful. Yet the leader himself mentioned his name several times. So this is why I brought this, because we need to scrutinise this properly. I had very valid and genuine questions on behalf of the taxpayers that have come to me personally to ask why the Lib Dem Council are asking for more money, of taxpayers' money, to increase their cabinet positions and their special advisory positions, which ultimately, there's some really good people sat in these cabinet positions, which is a good thing, but also the council members, the councillors and the public have a right to question this. And I was asking questions, and each and every time, you can watch it on the live stream, I was rudely shut down by the leader, which was very unfortunate. He did mention today that he's looking to save money by removing the brass plaques at the front, which obviously members and the remuneration panel, but that's not saving money, because ultimately you're printing white paper ones and they keep seeming to grow. It's gone from 5 to 6 to 7. Possibly 8 now. So it does make sense not to have the brass ones because you're just printing them out like wildfire at the moment. And that said, that I also find it very hard that he seems to be U-turning on everything. And he U-turned on me with my questions. He gave me no opportunity to ask valid questions on this position, and therefore I would not have raised this today. But what concerns me even more is, does he know he's even the leader of the council when he doesn't know who the leader of our monarchy is in this country? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alistair Chambers. Do you have a seconder for your amendment, please? Councillor Graham, do you wish to speak now? You're reserved the right. Thank you. Is the amendment accepted by Councillor Hilton, please?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I keep forgetting we've got a king. I spent most of my life with the Queen as the head of state. Something that can be a slip. Anyway, I'm quite content with going ahead with the plan for the council to be able to question the portfolio advisory member. I think the issue about naming people is that when we're discussing these things, we're not talking about an individual. We're talking about the role and the job. And that person might change at any point in time. But this position will finish off what we thought we need to do to provide good leadership for this council.
Councillor Hilton, I'm so sorry to interrupt.
But I accept
the amendment. Make a speech later. Thank you so much indeed.
Right. So that becomes now the substantive motion.
So that now becomes the substantive motion.
Are there any further amendments?
Are there any further amendments? No?
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 To debate then.
We now move on to debate. Councillor Stephanie Chambers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I don't quite understand where this goes. So what happens now if that amendment's accepted? Does this role exist, or does it go back to general purposes and then come back to council?
So the role already exists. The debate tonight is about the remuneration. What will happen is, if the other recommendations in this report are accepted and the amendment, the remuneration will start in the backdated way suggested in the report. And what will simply happen thereafter is a report will go to General Purposes Committee from myself to bring forward the proposal put forward by Councillor Chambers effectively.
Thank you. Now, if I can just speak quickly on this. There's been several mentions this evening about the Liberal Democrat manifestos by the administration. I don't remember seeing in the Liberal Democrat manifesto that they were going to create more jobs and cost the taxpayer more money. I don't think that was put to the electorate. So the size of the cabinet has been increased. Then there's an extra role to support the cabinet. Councillor Hilton made an accusation that the previous administration was a very elite. And I explained to him, no, we were very economical. Yes, we worked hard. Yes, we did a lot of work, but that was within our gift to do, and we did that for this city. The role is a highly influential role, and you say it's not a decision-making role. However, the information provided is what you're going to be making those decisions on with the strong recommendations. So I do think it needs to be questioned. I still think it's very difficult at a time of local government where funds are tight, we can all admit that the first things you've done is create more money on the cabinet. So more money for the Liberal Democrats. And it's just hard to justify. And I think I've seen one of the replies in the questions, and it says the money is coming from in-year pressures. Well, that has to be taken from somewhere. So what services are not being done because you're taking more money? So please, don't just say it's an in-year pressure. What's not going to be done? Is it less weeds? Is it less grass cutting? What is it? What's not going to happen for the residents of this city? It is a hard job being in cabinet. We've done it, we know. However, it's a very, very rewarding job, and I hope you can take that from it rather than more money. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stephanie Chambers. Councillor Pullen, I think, was next, and then Councillor Patel. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we know that the leader has appointed 2 extra cabinet members already at a cost of £23,000. Now he wants to increase, what was it called? Because it's been called so many different things now, a cabinet advisory support role, I don't know, whatever it is, at a cost of £5,172. So that will then put the cost of the cabinet up to £28,000. Where's this going to stop? How many more cabinet members do you want? I'm sorry, but, you know, you've got enough of them. It's been 2 months into your administration. Has anybody seen any evidence as a result of those extra cabinet members? Because we haven't. I'm sorry, but the Labour group will not be supporting this issue. There is far better things to spend money on than extra cabinet posts and advisory posts to go with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pullen. Councillor Patel now, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Gosh, that's a lot of money, isn't it? Taxpayers' money, £27,000 of taxpayers' money. You've only just come into administration. I think what Councillor Hilton has finally realised, you know, all these years he's been sat on the sidelines, coming up with buzzwords, coming up with grand ideas. But he's finally realised that it's not easy. The work is not easy at all. And instead of taking it on the chin, working hard and grafting like the previous administration cabinet did, putting in the hours, you know, day and night in some cases, you realise you can't handle it. You can't hack it. So what do? You increase your cabinet. Soon, before you know it, you'll have your whole Lib Dem administration as cabinet members, wasting even more of taxpayers' money. You couldn't make this up.
Thank you, Councillor Patel. Councillor Chambers de Bus, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When we were all re-elected, myself and Councillor Pullen, we had a meeting with Declan and Jeremy, and it was explained about how we were going to go from 5 cabinet members to 7. And part of that idea was because it's a workload and to be able to lean out what was going on a little bit to give people a better opportunity to be able to perform. Now, whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, but that's what's happened. But I'm just confused as to why you still feel, at the cost of the taxpayer, you need to thin that out still further. You know, as Councillor Pullen said, where does this stop? If the Cabinet can't deal with the workload, do we have the right people on the Cabinet? Yeah, I hope that we do. They all look and sound quite competent. But I've just got to wonder how much more it's going to be thinned out. Yeah, we're into what, month 3? And we've now got 3 extra posts, not just the 2 that was originally muted. It needs to stop somewhere. And actually, I'm pretty certain that your Cabinet maybe is more competent than you imagine and can do the job without this extra role being created and paid for.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers de Bus. Councillor Lewis, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Now, as one of those hard-working cabinet members who's done it for so long, it's not an easy role, I'll grant you that. But if you want the role, you just got to do it. Now, you could have given all these extra cabinet members, but reduced the money per one. So it actually works out the same. If they're doing half the work, get half the pay. Or you could have decided in a year's time, when it's your budget, that's when you're going to pay for it. Stop trying to run before you can walk. You know, I was going to be slightly flippant then, but I thought, no, I'll be quite respectful and say you've made a decision. I don't think it's going to get through, to be perfectly honest, because it's wrong. You don't need these extra positions to run the council efficiently, because we've done it for 20 odd years. And you cannot say, even the second in command, Declan, said, Gloucester's looking a lot better now. I remember, don't you start looking at me like that, Declan. I know what he said. He said, Gloucester's looking better these days. And we did it with 5 members of cabinet, not 7, possibly 7.5. So, if you'd have done this in a year's time, when it really is your budget and everything else, couldn't really argue with it. I would have probably gone along with it. You could have shown us how you're getting on and whatever. But this is a step too far. And I don't think the people of Gloucester will actually like it very much. You're going to cost them. You might make another £1 million on it, whatever. Let's have the evidence first before you spend it. All right? So I personally won't be voting for this. I'll be voting against it.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Oh, Councillor O'Donnell then, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I've got to say, there's a phrase that springs to mind, jobs for the boys and girls, but I'm not saying that's what this is. But the increased council costs, it's going to cost a fortune for this extra 2 people. But what I would like to know is why, if you feel like this is essential, then why can't you cut the costs by spreading it from other cabinet members to create the post rather than spending more money? I mean, the Lib Dems party take 10% from every pound paid for their campaign war chest. Yeah. So in essence, taxpayers paying for the Lib Dems election costs. Why can't you use that money instead and give it to the extra job?
Yeah, that's a good point, wasn't it, Brendan? I think they took
Thank you,
10%.
Councillor O'Donnell.
Yeah.
Councillor Alistair Chambers, did you wish to speak? Thank you.
Yeah, just going to get my paper. Yeah, so my point is that, yeah, I pretty agree actually with the Labour Party that they're going to vote this down, and also with the Conservative Party, they're going to vote this down. So in essence, I think I'm going to remove my amendment and vote with the 2 sensible parties. Oh, no. Oh, I'm not going to remove it. Am I going to remove it? Oh, it's been accepted. Okay.
I'll vote for you.
Are you guys going to vote it down?
You make the amendment.
Well, I'll see what we go. I'll see how you guys will wait. Cheers. Thank you.
Any further debate, please?
No,
Okay.
in that case, does Councillor Wilson wish to make a closing speech?
In that case, does Councillor Wilson wish to make a closing speech, please? Oh, I beg your pardon. Councillor Graham, did you wish to speak? No.
Oh dear, it's very disheartening to be at this. Look, yes, I know. All I can say is in a year's time, if it's not working, we can change it. But I think it will work. The thing is that this council has got issues that need to be resolved. And we need people to do it. It's not, it says 5,700. Yes, it's taxpayers' money. It's not really that in terms of, I can think of, even as a cabinet member, my daughter, who has a sort of admin job in an insurance company, earns much more than I do as a cabinet member. We agree, we accept that our allowances are quite small, and that's fair enough. That's what we all accept to do. There will be a considerable amount of extra work attached to this role, and I think, it would be very mean-spirited not to recognise at least a little bit of that. So I think the work, the work that Ashley will do will bring this council in a lot more money. It's a good investment in the future. If not, we can look at it again. But I don't think it's a bit like, to sort of throw it out because it's a few thousand quid and you don't think that's wise payment of money. It's sort of like somebody giving up their job because of the £1,000 a year they're going to save on their train fare. It doesn't make them £1,000 better off. Ashley will have this particular person, but I suppose we all know it's Ashley. He will have a task and targets to deliver. And if he doesn't deliver, I'm pretty sure Jeremy will become ruthless Jeremy, and it applies to all of us. If none of us deliver in our cabinet posts, we're out. We won't survive. So I think it would be the wrong decision to turn this down. I think it should be given a chance, and I would urge everyone to please support this and see if it works, because I think you will get a lot more back than the 5,700 that you've spent on it. So I think it would be the wise thing to do. I think turning it down would be very foolish, but it's up to you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Hilton, please. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The comments have been made that the previous administration reduced their membership in the cabinet to 5. There was 6 at one time, and I think one of the individuals was removed from the cabinet, and the leader at the time took on that cabinet role. can I say that, we have been bedding in as a cabinet, and we do know there's one hell of a lot of work to turn this council around. And we need the people to do it. So what you're asking is for one member to take on real responsibilities and input, but you're not prepared to accept the results of the independent remuneration panel. That, I would say, is slightly mean-spirited. I've looked at the 3 district councils in this area. Cheltenham Borough Council has 9 members, and the rate that they get paid is greater. And the Cotswold District is 8, and the Forest Edition is 7. Yeah, I know. And the reason is because you need the people to do the job. We had a very narrow council last time. We just had 5 members sitting in the cabinet, and a lot of us were just really frustrated about the way things were going. That's the reason why. I mean, the alternative that I considered at the beginning, because we've only got 17 members, is the ideal I had in my head was to have 8 members and have somebody, particularly the cabinet member, to deal with the commerce and commercial activity, but also to put them on the board of Gloucestershire Airport. Now, bear in mind that the person that sat on Gloucestershire Airport before, that was appointed by this council, who was not any longer a councillor, received an allowance for sitting on an airport board of £4,000. That the chairman of the airport board, the chairman of the airport board receives an allowance of £12,000. The airport, by law, cannot pay somebody from the council to sit on that board, but the authority can pay somebody to do the work for this council. So we're asking somebody to sit on that board and do a lot of work for us and to try and find out what's going on with no funding at all for it. The 7 members that we've got in cabinet is the ones that we definitely need. They've all got a lot of work to do, and we're learning from as we're bedding in. We also understand that in bedding in, we've had to deal with a general election at the same time, where officers were exceptionally busy preparing for a general election. And we've also, some things we can't do, or there's no point in starting some stuff until we know what the policy agenda of this government will be, or the new government. I really do think that identifying in the way you have done and saying that somebody's not worth it, it really is a bit disappointing.
Thank you, Councillor Hilton. So we're now going to move on to the vote.
On the motion as amended.
On the motion as amended. So all those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions?
Right, that motion is lost.
That motion is lost. Thank you. Okay, we are now moving on to item 11 on the agenda, designation of monitoring officer. We're just waiting for Councillor Beaucott to return. Right, we're now going back to item 11. Councillor Hilton to move, please. Thank you.
This is the report of the Senior Appointments Committee. And it's asked for the council to resolve that Jane Cryer be designated the monitoring officer for Gloucester City Council in accordance with Section 5 of the Local Government and Housing Act 1989, with effect from the 1st of October, or a commencement of secondment to the council, whichever's sooner. And we also note that we've had great services from Tom Clark, who's holding on until Jane Cryer takes up the post. That was the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Hilton. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Wilson, thank you. Do you wish to speak now? Reserve the right. Thank you. Are there any amendments on this? Councillor Alistair Chambers, please.
The only amendment is that the financial implications. Again, we're all here to monitor council tax, council costs, housing benefit, business rates, etc., etc. All the money into this council, every penny we're paid, every money that's spent is paid by taxpayers. So my point is for the amendment is item 9.1 is clarity on the exact cost of the payment to the monitor officer. That is all. It says approximately 70k. Is that 60 grand side of 70k? Is that 80 grand? Is that 90 grand? We'd just like to know what the exact cost is to the taxpayer for this position. Approximate with council tax money doesn't wash with me. We want to know the exact cost. That's all I ask. So if you'd like to try and make that a bit better for me, Mr. McGinty.
Thank you, Councillor Alistair Chambers. Do you have a seconder on your amendment? Councillor O'Donnell, thank you. Do you wish to speak now or reserve the right? Okay, thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. I'm going to hand over to Mr. McGinty.
So I think the amendments being proposed is, in addition to the other recommendations in this report, that councillors be notified as to the exact cost rather than the approximate cost. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Hilton, do you accept the amendment, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think
just a yes or no would be fine. Thank you.
Shows the financial implications being £70,000 per head per annum. I think that information is sufficient.
I think we just need a yes or no at the moment, Councillor Hilton. So sorry. Thank you. Okay, that's a no. So
debate on the amendment.
So is there any debate on the amendment? Councillor Patel, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just a question about why we seem to be going through so many monitoring officers in the last few years. We seem to be going through more monitoring officers than we have prime ministers recently. So just wondering why that is. Why are we not able to retain our monitoring officers? Is there a problem in the council, which is why they are running away? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patel. Councillor Lewis. Oh,
thank you, Madam Mayor.
I apologise. I'll get to you again.
I mean, I presume this role, being quite a senior role, has got a wage band or something of that nature, and it's prescribed. So I got no problems with this whatsoever. The lady or whatever will get what she's entitled to. I mean, it's a monitoring officer, and it's a damn difficult job, as you would well know, Councillor Chambers. So, and I think they're worth every penny that they get. And so I personally will be voting with the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. There were some other hands up. Alistair Chambers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the reason and the sole reason for this is just to find out the exact payment. Approximately could be 20 grand more, 20 grand less. And I just think taxpayers should know. So all I'm asking for is the exact costs, taxpayers are going to be burdened with another monitoring officer. I have no objections with the monitoring officer. I think she seemed fantastic, the new monitoring officer that's coming in. Very professional, very good. So the value is not, like, even if it's 100,000, it's not the cost, and I'm not saying I think 70,000 in terms of the position is very reasonable with the CV that the monitoring officer is coming with. So it's not that. All I'm asking for is clarity on the cost. Approximately doesn't wash with me for council taxpayers' money. We need figures, actual facts and figures. Everything here is approximately, and we can't have any more approximates. Hence the reason we haven't had accounts for the last few years. We need pounds to the pennies. We need to know what's being spent, where it's being spent, who it's being spent on, and how much it's being spent. This is all of our money, and this is everyone's money outside these windows. And there's nothing wrong with being open, honest, and transparent, and holding other accountability. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no secret thing going on here. Let's just say how much they're being paid, and we can move on. It's as simple as that. But I'd just like to say the current monitor officer is very, very good. Thank you very much for your service. It's very sad you'll be departing us, but thank you very much for everything you've done. Absolutely fantastic. But yeah, we have had as many, we've had loads of cabinet monitor officers. Like every other week there seems to be a new monitor officer. There's been that many, there's nearly been as many monitoring officers as the Lib Dems have council cabinet members. But like I said, the vanishing council, I think Jeremy's trying his hardest to make up for that by creating various new positions. So well done, Jeremy. Probably only got back another 200 to go and you'll be where you want to be. But yeah, thank you very much to everyone. I hope you can support clarity and accountability and transparency. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Councillor Stephanie Chambers, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'd just like to express my thanks to Tom here for being the monitoring officer. It is a critical role for this council, and I know some officers' wages, salaries are listed on the internet. I don't know if this is one of those that's included on that. However, I would like to say I was very impressed with the monitoring officer at senior appointments, and I hope she's as good as she shows herself to be in that meeting. However, it is a critical role, and I think we do need to pay the right money for her, and I don't think her salary is being questioned, however, just the transparency of it. So I can support that. But I think, you know, to get somebody of the quality that this council needs, we should be paying a good amount of money to make sure we can get people, because it's very difficult for us to compete with the private sector.
Thank you, Councillor Stephanie Chambers. Councillor Pullen, I'm terribly sorry. You should have gone before. Councillor Pullen, thank you.
I'm sure you hadn't forgotten me, Madam Mayor. Yeah, OK, we know the council has had a succession of monitor officers. I don't know whether it was as many as there are cabinet members, but there has been a lot of them. And let's not forget, the monitoring officer is a crucial legal post for this council. It's absolutely essential, and we cannot go on, with the greatest respect to Mr Clark, we cannot go on with this council with a temporary monitoring officer. We need permanence. Now, as with other group leaders, I was at the interview process. I seen someone who displayed the skills, the knowledge, the experience, and the commitment to want to come to Gloucester and work with us. All group leaders supported that. All group leaders said, yes, this is the person we want to appoint. We are happy with that appointment. 70k or thereabouts, yes, okay, that's a fair comment. Might I remind you, although it's quite obvious, that there will be national pay scales for monitoring officers wherever you are, whichever council you work for in the authority. Now, my understanding is that the new monitoring officer will be employed by one legal, am I correct? And that they will ultimately then be responsible to Tewkesbury Borough Council. Am I correct in that? In which case, the whole issue around the salary actually would rest there rather than with this council. Either way, we're happy to support it. We need permanence. We've got the right officer. Let's just get on with it and appoint her, please.
Thank you, Councillor Pullen. Any other debate? Oh, on the amendment? Councillor O'Donnell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's not that we're against having a monitoring officer at all. It is an essential role. But just throwing out there an approximate 70k, that's pie in the sky. That's nothing. We need figures in, you could say up to £100,000, between 60 to £100,000. At least then we've got a figure and we know that you're not going to try and fly above this. And I think that's really all we can expect. We can't expect a real straight off figure because we don't know about yourselves yet. But if we could get an approximation, just give it a range so that we know where we're standing, how much could be spent or how little could be spent. You know what I mean? Just, yeah, whatever. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. So is there any further debate on the amendment? Yes, sorry, thank you. Councillor Wilson, please.
Yeah, I wouldn't be happy to support the amendment. I think the word approximate is exactly what it says. Be 1 or 2,000 one way or the other. Again, we probably don't know at this stage what the exact amount's going to be. So long as it's around about the 70,000 mark, I don't think we need to be any more concerned. If it was substantially more than this, that would be a different matter, but I wouldn't expect it to be. So approximately round number, fine with that, because that gives us all the information that we need to know to make this decision.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Oh, Councillor Gravels.
You want to speak, but I just wondered if, to address the point that Alistair's making, if when the appointment is made and finalised and we know the salary levels, we just report back to members and say, got a new monitoring officer, they were appointed at this level, this is the salary, then it's all out in the open and we don't need to go on much longer on the hottest night of the year. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Gravels.
I'm not sure if that was an amendment or not, whatever it takes.
Thank you. We're now going to...
Does Councillor Hilton want to speak as on the amendment before we take the vote?
Councillor Hilton, would you like to speak on the amendment? Please. Councillor Hilton, would you like to sum up, please?
What, on the amendment? Yeah, I recommend that we throw it out. We need to have approximates. We know it's about £70,000. Otherwise, we'll be tying the council down with finite calculations of what every member of staff is being employed in when we take on new people. It's just, £70,000. We know that's the likely cost, and that one legal will be employing the individual. And I suppose as Tewkesbury Borough Council, it'd probably be on the pay policy statement from them, I would assume.
Thank you, Councillor Hilton. We're voting purely on the amendment now. All those in favour? All those against? Oh, sorry. So sorry.
I didn't get all the hands, sorry.
All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? One abstention.
So that amendment is carried.
That amendment is now carried.
So that now becomes the substantive motion.
So that now becomes the substantive motion.
And we go on to debate. Is there any debate on the substantive motion?
Any debate on the substantive motion, please? Would the original mover and seconder like to make any closing speeches, please? No?
Okay. Vote on the amendment. No.
Oh.
Vote on the amended motion.
So now we're going to vote on the amended motion. All those in favour? Okay. All those against? Any abstentions? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. We now move on to item 12, and it's Councillor Wilson to move, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. what this was an emergency decision that was made by our managing director. And what it was for was an award. It was sort of extended 3 year. It was a 3-year extension of the software license that we had. And this software, it manages all the payments that are made to the council, for council tax, business rates, etc. And the license expired on the 31st of March 2024. And if we didn't renew it, we would have been in serious trouble as regards all our payment systems, etc. So in effect, it was a decision that we had to make. Ideally, in this sort of environment, we should be constantly looking at who our suppliers are with all these various types of software and systems. Maybe do that about a year or so beforehand. And usually the costs involved in that are quite substantial. And you have to bring in consultants. You have to second some of your own staff to it. And they're sort of working on this full time. And you may or may not go with it. So this will extend this software for another 3 years. And I must confess, I don't know how we got into that situation when the 31st of March, the software expired. And that was, why? There may be cyber attack issues there, I don't know. But in an ideal situation, and there's something that I'm grateful back to the previous administration, they should have been working on this 2 years beforehand if they were going to change this software provider or not. We're now got it for another 3 years, but I can be sure if I'm still around, we will be looking at this, in good time and looking to see if we can get some better value from somewhere else. But pulling the plug on it and not making this decision would have been the worst thing we could have possibly done. So I'm going to stand up my old buddy Andrew here as well, because I know that you were approached as well to waive your rights to call it in. And again, it was the right decision to do. I'm sure we're both not happy of how we ended up in this situation, but under the circumstances, I can't see how we could have done anything else as well. So this is what this decision's about. It's not ideal, but right where we were, it was literally the only thing we could do. So in future, we're going to have to check on when all our software licenses expire, how they integrate with our other systems, and we're going to have to be more on top of this in future so we can get better value as we move forward. But I'm afraid, for whatever reason, and I don't know why, it never happened. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
Is there a seconder?
Is there a seconder? Councillor Hilton, thank you. Do you wish to speak now or reserve the right?
This is to note a decision, isn't it? Rather, we're noting a decision. The decision's been made. We can't reverse it at council. I think we just need to understand that. And it's a legacy from the previous administration who weren't on the ball and didn't do the job properly and didn't renew the contracts. And we've had to take emergency action, and thankfully the chair of the Audit and Governance Committee agreed to go ahead with it. Otherwise, we'd have been in this pretty perilous position.
Are there any amendments? Oh,
An amendment.
Oh,
An amendment.
Councillor Alistair Chambers.
There'll be on to debate, Andrew, and you'll be to see all the cool stuff in a minute. Thank you. Sorry. So the amendment is that Gloucester City Council start the tendering process for contracts running their course a minimum of 2 years before the contract end date. That's the amendment, and I'll talk on debate on that straight after, if that's okay.
Thank you, Councillor Alistair Chambers.
No,
so,
well, you need to take advice from Tom.
I'm just going to take some advice from our monitoring officer on this. Thank you.
Just to say, this report is here for noting. There is no report as such to amend. You're just noting what's already happened. So I hear what you say, Councillor Chambers, but the council's heard what you've said, and no doubt you can take that up with the head of finance and resources.
Could I make a note then?
It'll be in the minutes, and as I said, make a suggestion to the head of finance and resources.
Can I make that publicly now, very quickly, as part of my note? I thought it was an amendment, as in a physical amendment.
There can't be an amendment because you're just
Oh,
noting.
no amendment. I'd like to make a note, if that's okay, and just in debate on the situation. It'll be very quick.
As long as it's quite brief.
Thank you. Very quickly. Okay. Really, very quickly. The situation with GL1, which we could take our memories back to, was a situation where the contract was 10 years long, and towards the end of the contract was not negotiated. At that point, the City Council realised that the contract, so Andy, it's not having a perfect point here. The situation then, the contract has come to its end. So really quickly, they should have started tendering processes before to stop the contract ending its course and leaving a situation where the sports centre is closed. This is no different. This document that's had to get rushed through, on the 29th of May it was signed, uploaded on the 30th of May, was for a contract that was terminated 60 days before that, on the 1st of April. And this is no simple contract. This is a contract for every payment that comes into this City Council from domestic rates, building business rates, non-payment, national non-domestic rates, housing benefits overpayments, and our contracts to get money in to make sure that the facilities of parks are running, reading, bin collection, recycling had stopped. The contract had stopped. No one had noticed that this contract had ended. So this contract, that's £320,000 approximately, has come to an end, and we've had to sign in for another 3 years without us discussing best value for the taxpayer. And the administration even saying this is highly unfortunate. It's absolutely shocking that a contract for a value of £320,000 of taxpayers' money has not gone through competitive tendering for IT businesses in our city. I've got the contract, it's not even filled in, there's nothing here, it's a complete joke, where council taxpayers are getting robbed. Incompetent council, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Now, I'm going to go to, I think it was Councillor Gravel's was first, and then Councillor Lewis.
So, first of all, I want to make it clear that I agree with absolutely everything that Declan said. And I remember the phone call from the Chief Exec very early one morning asking me to agree to this. And I also remember asking you quite a few questions about what if we don't sign it, what if we don't agree? And if we didn't agree through you, let's just go on. If we didn't agree to it, all the payments that the council were due to make, including all of your wages, just stopped, comes to an end. So it's like negotiating with a gun to my head. It seems I had no choice other than to agree to what Declan was proposing. That didn't give me any problems at all. But while I'm on my feet, I do have some sympathy with the points that Councillor Alistair Chambers was trying to make. Now, whether or not it's an amendment or not, I'm not quite sure I understand why we can't say something like, we received the report, we note the report, as you said, it's a decision already taken in the past, which we can't amend, our hands are tied. But I don't understand why we can't say something like, whilst we note the report, we feel that bang, 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 bang. Why can't we do that?
Thank you, Councillor Gravel's. Councillor Lewis, then, please.
Madam Mayor, can somebody tell me why we can't do that? It's not an amendment, it's just adding a form of words which says...
It will be in the minutes of the meeting, so that's how it's recorded.
Yeah. Councillor Lewis, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to take a little bit of umbrage with Councillor Chambers, and he's bloody left the building. Pardon my French. He's on about starting a contract 2 years beforehand. What do you think we were doing with GL1 and all the rest of it? We were 18 months into the contract, debates and looking at it and whatever, and then they decided to go belly up, because they went belly up early in the year, and it was due to be renewed in September. It was 2 years into it. We didn't force them to. 2 years into that contract, looking at it with SLC and all the officers as well. So you get your facts right, please, Alistair, before you start shouting. All right? At GL1 and all the rest of it, we did over 2 years. Best part of. All right? So where was I talking? Oh, yes, right. I agree with Declan, and let's just get on with it.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Any other debate?
Gosh,
Motion to note the report.
So we are now going to vote on the motion to note the report.
Note the decision, sorry.
Note the decision. We're voting. All those in favour?
Against?
All those against?
Okay.
Any abstentions? Okay. We've noted the decision. Thank you. Moving on now to notices of motion. First motion is proposed by Councillor Millard.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Council. Councillor Tracy Millard moving motion regarding street safety. This council notes the growing issues of retail crime across the UK, as highlighted in a recent report from the Co-op Group, which states there were record levels in 23, with more than 333,000 incidences, a 44 year-on-year increase, with many communities continuing to be blighted by retail crime. It is acknowledged that a majority of these committing crimes are repeat and prolific offenders. This council understands the impacts this criminal activity is having on shop workers in Gloucester, with retail staff feeling demoralised and in danger at their workplace after experiencing verbal abuse and threatening behaviour. It also recognises that retail employers have a responsibility for the safety of their staff, but the council has a role in supporting public and community safety on a wider scale. This council notes the campaign work of the Cooperative Party, who have been working in partnership with organisations such as the Co-op Group, Cooperative Societies and Usdaw Trade Union to tackle retail crime, and campaigning to tackle retail crime and strengthen the rights of retail workers. This council resolves to continue to engage with the retail sector, the BID, Gloucester City Safe and businesses in Gloucester to understand the severity of this issue and take increased action to tackle retail crime and protect retail workers. To include this issue in the Stronger, Safer Gloucester Partnership Work Plan review and look to secure adequate resources to address retail crime and protect retail workers. To write to the Police and Crime Commissioner asking for a review of arrangements for tackling retail crime by frequent and repeat offenders. Understand the issues and needs of retail offenders and how these can be addressed. Ensure and encourage retail workers to report crimes of retail crime, including abuse and threatening behaviour towards staff, in the confidence that the police will take action. Work with retailers where appropriate to reduce the opportunities, likelihood and ease of shoplifting in their premises, and support efforts to strengthen protection for shop workers, including ensuring any new criminal offence of assaulting retail workers is enforced. In writing this motion, we have spoken to the BID, the Head of Communities and the Safer Strong Partnership. And please note that since putting this in, that the King's speech yesterday has acknowledged that things need to be done. From personal experience and listening to union members and residents, retail crime is having such a huge impact on individuals, businesses and our streets. Do not underestimate the impact of unsafe streets and retail crime. Working in retail, I have witnessed firsthand the increase in retail crime and unsafe streets and the lack of support out there. You go and talk to retail workers and businesses that sell goods across Gloucester, you will hear horror stories. These crimes are not one-off. They are repeat offenders coming in daily, hourly, with the sole intent of stealing. If there is the opportunity for the workers to make a stop, they are faced with verbal, physical abuse, being spat at, weapons being pulled out, threats that at the end of the shift they will be targeted. This has all happened to me and many others. Innocent bystanders having to witness this, sometimes trying to intervene and then on the receiving end of abuse and threats. There can be long-term effects for some individuals who suffer at the hands of these thieves. That then puts additional pressure on already stretched services. Please don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking the services that are already out there trying to keep our streets safe and support with the retail crime. However, more needs to be done, and that is what this motion is asking for. Please support.
Thank you, Councillor Millard. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Pullen, thank you. Do you wish to speak now, Councillor Pullen?
No, I'll reserve the right, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any amendments to this motion? Councillor Hyman.
This is put forward as a friendly amendment. I'm sure everyone here is concerned about retail crime and threats to retail workers. In this context, we have attempted to assist in achieving a resolution that can be achieved effectively locally and put forward a practical proposal which will add to the debate nationally, as this is a nationwide issue. We do not consider it necessary to state what others are doing, but what we are or should be doing as a council. Some may look at this motion and think there is an advert for Labour and Cooperative. It would be unfortunate if this should be perceived in this way. I acknowledge the work of others, but we have to concentrate as a council working with our partners. We need full support for the principles of the motion and not an excuse for some to opt out of support. Because of work already being undertaken, we do not consider it necessary to cover this particular motion, as the proposer has actually mentioned, the cost of living crisis. The motion is mainly about threats to shop workers and prolific offenders. The Council is already committed to matters concerning the cost of living crisis. I therefore ask the Council to support this amendment so we can have a substantive motion agreeable to all with a practical way forward. That is why we have actually in there put the suggestion that we actually need to write to our Member of Parliament so it can actually be dealt with through Parliament as well. It is a national issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hyman. Do you have a seconder for your amendment? Councillor Radley, thank you. Do you wish to speak now, Councillor Radley, or reserve the right?
I'll reserve the right, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Millard, do you accept the amendment? Thank you. So that now becomes the substantive motion, and we're going to move on to debate. Is there any debate? Councillor Stephanie Chambers, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a good motion, thank you for bringing it, but it's also a good amendment which we will be supporting this evening. It's important that retail workers feel safe in their working environment, but it's also important for customers and visitors to our city to feel safe and welcomed when they come here, so we can all prosper together. I think I've spoken to the PCC's office. It does feature quite heavily in their new police and crime plan, as it was in their other one, and they had been making some ways with it. So also this council's been doing quite a lot. There's been some injunctions taken over the last year or so to make sure prolific offenders aren't in the city centre, and they've really, it's not a difficult thing to tackle, and those injunctions take a lot of time, and that has been very, very useful to see some of those, and it sends a message to other people not to behave like that in our city. So very supportive of this motion. The Police and Crime Commissioner will be featuring it in his plan, so we don't need to tell him how to suck eggs, but I'm sure he'll be there doing it. I agree with having understand the issues and needs of repeat retail offenders and how these can be addressed, deleted from this, because it is such a complex issue. And we maybe look at those people and we're angry and we don't want to go by them and we don't like the way they're behaving and it is wrong and they shouldn't be doing it. But, you know, there's a lot that needs to be understood, and I think that's bigger than what we can do, and it's not under our remit to understand everything about that kind of offender. That's more for probation and other crime agencies. So thank you for bringing this motion and amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Stephanie Chambers. Councillor Lewis, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you all know, I used to work in Tesco's, bless the little cunt sauce. And I've seen my fair share of nasty people, should we say. And some of it is quite weird. Sunday opening hours, we let them in at 9:30. They're moaning by 9:45 and they can't pay for the stuff. And they throw things around the shop and this, that, and the other. Absolutely bonkers. And you'd look at them and think, you're just a normal person. What's going on here? Might have hidden problems, whatever. But that is what the staff are dealing with day in, day out. Now, when somebody on the tills has to wear a body cam because they're endangered nearly every single day, it's a joke. Now, also, I've seen in Tesco's, they put all the booze, because I have to go and get it, in these sort of basket type things with alarms on now. how much does that actually cost Tesco's and then inadvertently us for these people nicking stuff? I remember there was an offer on gin. Not that I ever drink it. And a gang just went in, stripped the whole shelf and run out. And we're talking hundreds and hundreds of pounds. And there was a national problem with Gordon's gin just being nipped off the shelf. I do support wholeheartedly everything in this, but please remember the majority of retail staff are female and they are scared. And it's right, I'm big enough and ugly enough, I can take what I get and whatever, but some of these 16-year-olds being threatened. It's a joke, absolute joke. And now, is this society or what? I don't know. We never used to have it years and years ago. You went into a shop, you say, please, thank you very much, and off you went. Now you don't. You rant and rave. If you can't get to a till, you can't do this. Something is broken with people that can't wait 2 minutes. So I do agree wholeheartedly with this. And the amendment, Howard, is very, very good. It is shocking what I see in Tesco's every time I go in there. There's always somebody.
Sorry.
Whose birthday is it then? Anyway, I just want to say I'll support the motion, no problem.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Councillor Alistair Chambers, please.
Yeah, really, really quickly, obviously, keeping people safe in our city is paramount for everyone. However, I don't see why the council taxpayer should be funding this work to help retail businesses that earn substantially more than local businesses. The Co-op, for example, made 11.5 billion last year. Our city council is struggling to cover costs for weed clearance, recycling bins, and I think to make more costs to help facilitate the retail industry, which makes substantial amounts of profits every year at cost of living time. I think they made more money during the cost of living crisis than they made before, which tells me that is there a cost of living crisis, or are they just exploiting the vulnerable? And unfortunately, you do get people that steal from shops. But we've got to remember neurology, people with mental health. Obviously, you're going to get people that somebody might see as unsavoury, but you don't know what underlying issues that person has. That said, I do think it's a good motion, but I don't believe that any cost-related items should be the burden of the taxpayer to help facilitate large corporate retail companies that make huge profits. Like I said, the cooperative makes 11.5 billion, and I don't think our taxpayers should be covering that. For example, local licence holders in the area, pubs, do they get the council working out how to manage their security for them, pay for their security, help do plans for them? You've got small licence holders in the city that have to facilitate and manage their own security, manage their own health and safety, and there might be just a single person running a small brewery or a small pub. So myself, I don't think we should be covering any costs for these large corporations. I think the tax money would be better spent looking at why these people are stealing, finding ways to help support them with food banks and putting the money in, trying to solve the problem than trying to react to the problem. I think that's a much better way that we should be looking to facilitate that. I haven't put a motion in because I think a lot of people are going to accept it, but my personal opinion and that of the team when we discussed this is that money would be better spent sorting out the problem, being proactive, rather than spending the problem, trying to sort the problem reactively, which won't sort the problem. People still need to steal if they need to eat, and they can't afford gas and electric. So I think money would be better spent in supporting people on where food banks are, where access to free food is, rather than helping the large corporations and £1 billion profit organisations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alistair Chambers. Councillor James de Bus, and then Councillor Patel, and then Councillor Conda. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Retail crime and the impact it has is appalling. Now, I'm sure I'm not alone in saying that when I started working, age 14, probably can't get away with it now, my first job was on a Saturday in a shop. And whilst people may now have to be slightly older, for many, many young people, our children, their first job is going to be in retail. Now, thankfully not in Gloucester, but my daughter, when she was at university, worked in a shop to subsidise her income. It wasn't a shop that sold booze or cigarettes or the sort of thing like that that you would think of that would be wanted by thieves. And she had 3 instances in 2 months of being threatened by people, twice with hammers, to hand over the money. I was horrified. And the response I got from other people that work in retail and young people was, well, wherever you are, you've got to accept that that's the way that it is. Why should we be accepting that for our children? And, you know, it's fair enough saying that the big corporations need to pay for their security. But if you're in a small shop owned by one person, how are they going to pay to help eradicate that when they're struggling to keep going anyway? And then you've got to think as well, and I'm sure this is a conversation that we have all had with people when they say, oh yeah, well, I don't go into the city centre anymore. You say, well, why don't you go into the city centre? Well, it just doesn't feel safe and there's so much theft and it's really rough. So actually, it isn't just down to corporations. It's about improving things for the shop workers. It's about improving things for the people that use those shops and the people that are working our streets. So I really, really hope that you all feel able to support this because it's just so vitally important. And thankfully, it was recognised in the King's speech. So hopefully we will see movement from that front. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers-Dibbles. Councillor Patel now, please.
Sarge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I absolutely agree with the motion and also the amendment. I think it's fantastic. Nobody should be having to go to work and be abused or threatened or assaulted. That's absolutely unacceptable and it should not be happening anytime, let alone in the current climate. What I do see in my ward, a few members have talked about large corporations, but what we're forgetting here is the small businesses, small independent businesses in our city as well. There's plenty of those. And we should not forget them, and they should be getting the support as well. Support from the police should be there too. And I often see that the police are prioritising shoplifting with the larger supermarkets and the larger stores than they are with the small independent businesses. I often speak to traders who have had occurrences of shoplifting and they contacted me and they say, I've been waiting for the police. I've got the recording right here. It's been 4 days, it's been 4 weeks and no one's turned up. And it shouldn't be a 2-tier system by the police where they are immediately there to assist with large supermarkets and large corporations, but not there for the smaller businesses. They should be providing the same service to all businesses across the city, small or large. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patel. Councillor Condor, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A few weeks ago, I met a resident completely randomly who told me he'd been in Tesco's in Southgate Street and watched a man pick up 3 cans of beer, excuse me, and walk out unchallenged by the security guard. And a couple of weeks after that, I was in Southgate Street. I went into B&M. I'd seen people drinking outside. This was 10:30 on a weekday morning. So when I got to the till in B&M, I asked the assistant if they had problems with people outside, and she said, oh yes, regularly. And I said, do you call for assistance? And she said, well, we called the Red Jackets and they usually turn up after the scuffle is over, but we've had people thrown against the windows and the tills are just inside the windows in that shop. So we are paying the Red Jackets to do a job. And they were patently not doing it. They weren't stopping the drinking at 10:30 in the morning. And they were obviously not in the vicinity when the shops needed them. So I think we do have a role to play in stepping up the assistance we can give to the security guards who might then
follow a perpetrator out of a store, because I believe that they can't actually stop somebody until the person has actually left the premises. If they know they're going out into the street and finding no support, they won't challenge that person. But if they know there might be somebody in a red jacket a few yards away outside the shop, in the areas that we know are most likely to suffer this sort of problem, then the security guard might be able to do their job properly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Condo. So any further debate? Councillor Radley, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Earlier, there was a comment about young women working in shops. Well, my first substantive job was being a relatively young woman working in a shop. I walked to work. At the time, I couldn't drive. Without being able to get myself to work safely, and I worked unsociable hours, early in the morning, late at night, I wouldn't have been able to work. I wouldn't have been able to earn my living. So to think that the issues around retail and the world around that has a substantive impact on people's lives and livelihoods. And as a city council, we should play our part in that wider work to coordinate that. And so I think this is a very, very useful motion, and I thank you for bringing it, because I think back to when I was on the shop floor, when I worked in a large supermarket. A few people shouted at me, I had a few bits of spitting, but I never felt physically threatened. And I'm worried now that if I was working there now, I probably wouldn't be able to say that. So thank you, and I support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Radley. Any further debate?
Not then Councillor Pullen.
If not, then Councillor Pullen, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A few weeks ago, well, actually back in April, Alex McIntyre and I hosted a Shadow Cabinet Minister, Alex Davis-Jones, to come to Gloucester and look at what was going on in retail in the city. And a lot of the stories I'm quite horrified to hear. But we were in Gloucester on a Saturday afternoon, ordinary Saturday afternoon, and we, with the Shadow Cabinet Minister, Alex and myself, we visited 3 retail outlets. And I'm not going to name them, obviously. We visited a large clothes retailer on Northgate Street, and whilst we were there, someone ran in, took a load of clothes, took some perfume, ran out, right in front of us. To be honest, I couldn't believe it. Apparently, there's nothing you can do about it. CPSOs chase them off up the street, but that's how it is. We went to a takeaway food shop on Southgate Street and told by staff how people just walk in, take something off the shelf, walk out, and not pay for it. What can you do about that? And then, worryingly, in a coffee shop in Eastgate Street, a manager challenged someone. She was abused. She was assaulted by this person who refused to pay. She dialed 999 and called the police, and the police never even turned up. They contacted her several days later and said, "Thank you very much. We will report it as a crime, but we're not going to do anything else about it." Incredible. I couldn't believe it. Clearly things are completely out of control in the city centre. So, as Councillor Millard said, we've spoken to others, we've spoken to the BID, we've spoken to the head of communities and others in putting this motion together. We ask you to support the Safer Stronger partnership in reviewing their work programme to start tackling this issue. We ask you to write to the Police and Crime Commissioner. I'm pleased to hear from Councillor Stephanie Chambers that he's mindful to that. And enforce the legislation, the recent legislation in the King's Speech, Jeremy. What we want to do is make it safe for ordinary people to go to work and do their jobs in a shop, in retail. Thank you. And you've done it, Pam, haven't you? Anyway, there we go. And
I'm sorry, Councillor Pullen, time's up. If you'd like to just very quickly wrap up.
Also want to make our city centre a safe place for people to go and enjoy, to people to go and shop, and to retail staff to feel safe in that environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pullen. Councillor Millard, would you like to wrap up now, please? The closing speech. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, thank you all for your comments and the supportive comments. Just to clarify, this isn't about funding business, big business, okay? This is about making our Gloucester City streets safer for all, yeah? I use retail because retail can absolutely play a major part in this. Some big companies have really good footage that can identify these individuals that then go on to actually do antisocial behaviours on our streets. So it's about working collaboratively with all, and that's why we put the points in we did to actually look at working together. So this is about supporting your small business, your independent businesses, your retailers, your restaurants, your pubs. There's a whole raft of work that comes into this. It is not just about big retail. So please, please do support this. But thank you.
On the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Millard. So we're going to vote on the motion as amended, please. So all those in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? One abstention. Thank you. That motion is carried. Thank you. So we have now reached the 3-hour mark. We're just a little over it because we had a little adjournment earlier. So I will now ask the council if it wishes to close the meeting. 2/3 of those members present must vote in favour of closing the meeting. Otherwise, the meeting will continue. We still have several motions left. So can I ask you to vote in favour of closing the meeting, or those in favour of closing the meeting? Oh.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I think that's
10, 11, 12, 13. Yes, that's over 2/3.
that is over 2/3. So I'm afraid I have to now declare the meeting closed. Before you go, the next.
Do we get to vote? Do we get to vote no?
Oh, those. Oh yes, I do beg your pardon.